everyone, and welcome to our coverage of Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Kathy Yang.
Join us in the next 3 hours as we bring you news and views you can use when you place your votes today. I'm Diego Castro.
We have the big story on the ground from the full force of MediaQuest's news teams. Our reporters and stringers strategically placed nationwide. I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Denise Tan, bringing you data we've gathered in the past few months for today's midterm elections.
Well, with over 68 million Filipinos expected to cast the votes today, One News will be bringing you reports from our mobile journalists and TV correspondents situated in key areas. Our mobile journalist Mary Monray is monitoring the situation at the COMELEC in the bailiwicks of President and the Vice President. We have Julie Baiza and Bril Montalvo.
In Metro Manila, Denise Valdez-Sancho is monitoring the voting in Manila. Isa Abello is in Quezon City. John Francis Rivera is in Caloocan, while Kayla Macantan is in Taguig. Now, for Makati, we have Arles de los Santos, Evan Tarinque in Marikina, and Yeda Pascual in Las Piñas.
And in Abra, we have Rainiel Pawit. Amy Atienza will also bring us the latest from Batangas, and Jess Paredes will be reporting live from Rizal. Now, we also have our stringers from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao monitoring today's election.
First, let's head over to COMELEC. It's been over 4 hours since the polls officially opened, and the poll body is monitoring developments closely. Joining us now for the latest updates from COMELEC headquarters is mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes. Mary Mon.
Good morning sa inyo. So far, we are hours in, pero still itong COMELEC ay patuloy na nakatutok. And here sa likuran ko ay ang COMELEC Voter Care kung saan 24/7 silang naka-standby for any calls for queries and concerns related dito sa election. Common concerns na tinatawag dito ay yung pagtatanong ng mga botante kung saan nga ba raw sila yung presinto na kailangan nilang puntahan. Kasi yung iba nakakaharap nilang difficulties yung pag-navigate doon sa Precinct Finder na website ng COMELEC. At the same time, may problems din kasi na nagiging down itong dahil sabay-sabay daw na posible binubuksan itong Precinct Finder. Kaya nagkakaroon ng technical issues. Pero so far, lahat naman ng tumatawag dito ay tinutugunan nila at tinutulungan na nilang malaman kung saan nga ba. Pero para sa mga kapatid natin out there na nananavigate na nabubuksan itong Precinct Finder, ang kailangan lang daw tutukan dito, small details such as yung spelling ng pangalan, yung location kung saan sila rehistrado, even yung birthday. And so far naman, pagka nakuha naman ng mga ito, lalabas yung pinaka-presinto kung saan sila boboto. As of this time, 11 a.m., 100% na yung rate ng open voting base dito sa nakikita nating screen sa likod. So, right across from Region 1 to NCR, ang 100% na sila, except lang talaga ang Bangsamoro, Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, na nasa pa lang sila around 60% dahil nagkakaroon ng issues dito pagdating sa patuloy na mapayapa at maayos na pagbubukas ng botohan. Ilan sa mga nakitang concern dito, mayroon nagmamassing, merong massing ng tao sa harapan daw ng Municipal Hall sa Dato Odin Sinsuat sa Maguindanao del Norte. Kompleto naman daw ang paraphernalia dito, yung mga kagamitan, even yung mga electoral boards na nandoon. Kaso hindi raw hinahayaan ng mga tao na ipagpatuloy dahil hindi raw sila pumapayag sa mga nakaupong electoral boards doon. Kaya naman ang ginagawa ngayon ng COMELEC ay nakikipag-coordinate sila sa Philippine Marines para raw masiguro yung safety at maituloy na nga itong botohan sa lugar na ito. Ang tinitignan nila dito kung sakaling tatakbo pa ng ilang oras na magkakaroon ng slow movement pagdating sa pagboboto sa BARM, tinitignan nila yung posibilidad ng pag-extend ng voting hours, specifically doon lamang sa mga apektadong lugar. Even sa Datu, Saudi Ampatuan, isa rin sa naobserbahan dito, ayon sa naging briefing ni COMELEC spokesperson Attorney Rex Laudianco, unti-unti raw na pinapapasok ang mga tao o mga seniors nung kaninang 5 a.m. ng early voting. Pero base sa mga nakita raw nila, kasi may history itong lugar na ito na nagkakagulo ang mga botante. Kaya ang ginagawa ditong situation ng electoral board, unti-unti lang daw yung pagpasok ng mga tao. Pero ngayong magtatanghali na, crowded na doon ang dami ng mga tao, kino-coordinate na raw nila yung mas mabilis na pagpapapasok at yung mas mabilis ding paglabas ng mga botante to ensure pa rin yung maayos na daloy ng kanilang mga pagboto. So far, wala pa tayo nakukuhang impormasyon dito dahil mamayang hapon pa natin makikita dito sa mga screens ko sa likod yung magiging transmission of votes. So far, wala pa rin dito sa likuran natin yung mga in-expect natin na manglilibot na observers, local and international, pero yung ilan sa mga nakita natin ay mga poll watchers dahil sinasagawa na rin sa third floor dito sa Palasyo del Gobernador sa Intramuros yung pagbubukas na ng mga balota mula sa local absentee voting.
Mary Mon, initially si Chairman George Garcia has said that he will be monitoring also yung mga hotspot situations from the COMELEC. Have you seen Chairman George Garcia back there sa headquarters? Kasi I understand, umikot siya kanina.
So far, hindi pa natin siya nakikita dito. Pero more likely, isa sa pinaka-uunang pupuntahan muna ni COMELEC Chairman pag nandito na siya sa Kamaynilaan ay doon sa Manila Hotel kung saan doon nakapwesto yung National Board of Canvassers natin. Pero so far, dito sa Intramuros, wala pa tayong ibang nakahagilap dahil nga bukod dito isinasagawa din yung random na manual auditing ng COMELEC para nga raw ma-check nila kung integrated ba talaga itong sistema, may issues ba na nakakaharap. And rest assured naman daw na pag nagkaroon ng complications, lalong-lalo na sa automated counting machines, meron naman daw silang contingency machines na maaaring gamitin para hindi na raw mapatagal pa o madelay yung pagboboto.
Meron man kasi initially na may nakikita mga ibang complaints sa ibang candidates, parang hindi nila alam kung may issues, mas lalo na yung local candidates, saan sila pupunta if they want to have a dialogue with any of the commissioners? Do they go to the local offices or pupunta ba sila dyan sa headquarters?
Angelo, pagka nandun sila mismo sa lugar at merong pinakamalapit na opisyal ng COMELEC o even yung mga electoral boards na nandoon, maaari na raw nilang idulog yung kanilang mga issues or concerns. Pero same dito sa voter care, basta mga narinig natin simula kanina alas 5 ng madaling araw, may mga tumatawag din dito na ang question nila o concern nila ay tungkol daw sa naobserbahan nilang vote buying and selling. Kapag ka mayroong ganung tawag, nire-relay ng voter care, ng COMELEC voter care ang mga tumatawag na ito sa kontrabigay committee naman ng COMELEC para daw magawa ng aksyon itong kanilang mga report.
Yeah, just to clarify, before we let you go, no, Marymon, initially kasi the PNP was apprehensive about immediately arresting those caught buying or selling votes, pero klinaro ni Chairman George Garcia that they are allowed to do so. Can you confirm that, Marymon?
Yes, recently netong over the weekend kinonfirm nga ng COMELEC na maaaring magkaroon ng warrantless arrest kapag ka nakita ng law enforcement agents or officers or caught in the act na mayroong pagbenta o pagbili ng boto. Ito raw kasi para mapabilis na yung sitwasyon, para hindi na raw kailangan pumunta pa sa munisipyo, pumunta pa para makakuha ng warrants. Pero dapat dito masiguro talaga na caught in the act ang mga ito. Pero isa pa sa pinaalala din ng COMELEC, may prescription period of 5 years ang COMELEC pagdating sa mga election offenses. Kaya hindi raw dapat makampante itong mga nagpaplanong manloko o manlinlang na mga botante. That even after today, the election day, maaari pa rin nilang habulin ang mga may paglabag sa election code, sa batas at iba pang regulations na may kinalaman dito sa halalan.
Marymon, balikan na natin yung mga senior citizens and persons with disabilities. Binigyan sila ng palugit between 5 and 7 a.m. Paano kung may gusto pang bumoto? Baka hindi nagising na maaga. Ano ang mga panukala para sa kanila?
Kathy, tuloy-tuloy pa rin na pwedeng sumabay itong ating mga kapatid na senior citizens, PWDs, even ang pregnant women sa regular voting hours. Pero isa sa pinakatinitignan dito na concern ng ilang mga botante ay yung supposed na priority lanes para sa kanila o yung mga priority rooms para kung saan sila boboto, nagkakaroon daw dito ng mga problema. Pero so far, inihintay natin ang sagot dito ng COMELEC sa mga issue na ito kasi dapat ang nasabi ng COMELEC kung sakaling hahabol pa o hindi nakaabot sa 5 to 7 a.m. itong priority voters natin or early voters natin, maaari silang sumabay sa regular voting hours pero dapat meron pa rin silang priority lanes. Pero sa mga naging reports na nakuha din natin at sa mga kapatid din nating mojos out there, nagkakaroon ngayon ng issue nga tungkol dyan.
And Marymon, tungkol naman sa mga ACMs, have there been any reports of malfunctioning ACMs this morning?
Merong iilan na nakita na dito nga mga issues, for example, yung pagbabasa ng mga lukot o kaya ay mga stained na mga balota. Pero so far, within hours lang naman, naresolve nila ito. Pero ang nasabi dito ni Atty. Laudianco, pag inabot na daw ng around 1 hour or more na hindi nare-resolve itong mga issues na ito, meron daw agad contingency machines na ipapadala para raw hindi pa lalong mapatagal ang mga ito. Pero pagdating sa power outages, yan yung inaabangan natin, lalong-lalo na sa mga probinsya kung mangyayari ito. Pero kung sakaling mangyari man ang power outages, meron na mga backup na external battery ang automated counting machines na merong over 14 hours na battery lifespan.
All right, thank you, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes.
Nakaboto na ba kayo?
Mamaya pa, after this, diretso
Same.
na sa
After
taping.
this,
Yeah.
I know, naging busy tayo.
Until 7 naman eh, so
yes,
there's
that's
enough
true.
time. There's
7
enough time.
p.m. Manila time. Ayun nga, kasi kaninang umaga yung aming pinakabunso bumoto. And it was her first time
How was
to
the
vote.
experience?
Took 45 minutes. Akala ko nga
Okay.
hindi ko na masusundo kasi magpupunta na ako rito. Pero she did it and nakakatawa, nakakaengganyo. Kasi
Yeah.
nga, di ba, you know, you feel the energy. It's from the young people, no?
Especially
this
now,
is
right.
their vote.
Registered voters, you see there's an increase in that generation.
Yes,
and it's
that's
nice to
correct.
see that they're experiencing at least an improved way of voting. Kasi
That's
I
true.
remember, back in my day, it took 3 hours to vote.
Oo, tama no. And Gen Zs and millennials do make up 40% of the voter population for this particular midterm elections. We're going to discuss later how their voting behavior
Yes, correct. We definitely
has
will.
changed for this particular elections. And that's what we will be giving you in the next 3
It's going
hours.
to be a long slog, 3 hours, but it'll be worth it with you guys and
Definitely.
our guests. For the next 3 hours, we're going to be speaking to experts and analysts to make sense of one of the key components of the economy. It's the campaign. As in most midterm elections, it sets the stage for the national elections happening in 3 years. And political observers say the country's politics is entering one of its most turbulent and consequential phases since 1986. Well, with us now for more in the studio is Alan Herman, political strategist, Ronald Llamas, former presidential advisor in political affairs of the late President Benigno Aquino III. And also joining us via Zoom is Japet Kitson, the Associate Fellow with Southeast Asia's program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies over in Washington, D.C. It's coming up to 12 midnight. I know, Japet. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's start with you in Washington, D.C. You're seeing a lot of the similar patterns, I understand, Japet, in the run-up to today's polls and the 2022 national elections. But how do you make that distinction, though? What are you seeing from your end in Washington, D.C.?
Sure. First of all, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for having me on today. Really exciting to be here, and the elections are a very exciting time. Lots of movement on the ground that I wish I could see. But in terms of similar patterns in these 2025 midterm elections and comparing them to the 2022 national elections, there's a lot that's ticking the same box for me, right? Lots of similar patterns of big tent politics, politicians under many different flags, many different banners and ideologies, coming together, even though they might not necessarily be ideologically aligned, they're aligned in convenience. And that's something we can see in the Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas, just like the unit team before it in 2022. Branding and presentation are still vital in appealing to Philippine audiences, and there are bread and butter issues that are being focused on, like the Marcos administration's poverty alleviation programs, the long-promised 20 pesos na rice, foreign policy issues surrounding Philippine territorial integrity and standing up to China. What's the most interesting this time, though, is the implosion of the unit team. In 2022, we saw that marriage of convenience bring together unlike fellows, unlike politicians with unlike views. This time, we get to see them actually go off against each other. We are already seeing disinformation campaigns, astroturfing campaigns throughout Philippine social media that are pitting these two camps together against each other, and I'm going to find that very interesting to track. And of course, there's still the traditional opposition, even though they might not want to be called that, in forms of Kiko Pangilinan or Bam Aquino, also trying to tap into that same grassroots energy they used in 2022 to appeal to mass swath of voters. So it'll be very interesting to see how this election will turn out.
Stay with us for a moment as Pao has got something for us from Barm. Pao?
This time, we're going to be speaking with a News 5 correspondent, Gio Robles. He reports from the Bangsamoro region. Hi, Gio. What's the situation over there? Gio?
Hi, Kathy.
Go ahead, Gio. We can hear you.
All right. Kathy, voting was delayed for nearly 6 hours here in Dato Udin, Suwat Town, in the province of Maguindanao del Norte, after supporters of a mayoral candidate blocked the municipal hall. Supporters of the United Bangsamoro Justice Party or UBJP, barricaded military trucks transporting ballots and automated counting machines or ATMs to polling centers. The camp of mayoral candidate Baba Abbas and his running mate
Datu Bob Steele Sinsuat criticized the decision to let teachers supposedly oversee the elections instead of police personnel, despite the municipality being under COMELEC control. Negotiations between UBJP representatives and the Commission on Elections lasted for several hours. The municipal election officer of Datu Udin Sinsuat maintained that the police officers were assigned as special electoral board or SEB members, leaving them puzzled as to why the situation escalated into a standoff. Datu Udin Sinsuat has over 80,000 registered voters. It was only around 10 a.m. when the barricades at the municipal hall were removed, allowing the entry of ballots and counting machines to over 104 clustered precincts across 34 barangays. Kathy, back to you.
Right. Well, I'll pick up from there. I mean, this is really a repetitive feature, isn't it? I mean,
historically,
It is a
these
hotspot,
areas were
yeah.
always hotspots. Yes.
right? And it's always at the barn. You know, one would like to think that perhaps, you know, we could introduce peace, but we don't know how. Maybe we could ask our guests.
Yes.
Alan, Herman, very busy with your phone, along with Ronald Llamas.
when
Not
I
to
heard
put
that
you on the
news.
spot. I know, because I know that there's a lot of black ops that happen that we don't see, which you do, because you're on the ground.
Oh, that I do, that I see.
Right, that you see. And coming from, well, of course, this is a most contested spot, but it does happen on a local level. Maybe give us some color. Why suddenly maybe two warring factions get in trouble? And at a time that elections are happening.
Well, especially in Mindanao, the politics in Mindanao are fragmented, deeply rooted. There are a lot of social, cultural factors that are not present in perhaps other areas. I'm happy and awed to be seated beside the font of political knowledge, Secretary Ronald Llamas, who can probably tell us more about the socio-political dynamics in Mindanao. But essentially, the situation becomes more powder keg-like because, number one, the technology isn't as caught up. The information isn't brought as fast. The transmission lines, the infrastructure for communications, not as well developed yet. That's one. And secondly, there's more at stake. In other areas, perhaps, only political careers are at stake, or only political alliances would be at play. But in Mindanao, the dynamic becomes far more volatile and far more, well, invested is probably the best word I could use. Only because there are familial ties, long. I mean, we're talking about ancestors who are warring against. I mean, we're talking about maybe 125 years worth of history going on there. So Mindanao is a notoriously tricky spot to be holding elections.
I'd like to pick up from where you left and ask Ronald, since you said he's the...
The font.
Oh,
the
the
font.
font, yeah,
I drink from this font often.
I'd like to ask two things. First, how come when transmission comes, it's always at night for that area? And number two, hindi ba ang problem is the control of the so-called stronghold families, the warlords, over the population? Kaya nagkakaproblema even though you have the technology, you have the proper education. Chairman George Garcia spent a lot of time in that area. Pero until now, as we see sa reports, may gulo pa rin.
Yeah, definitely. No? Dahil sabi nga ni Alan, ibang mundo yung Mindanao eh. It's the wild, wild west. At least large parts of it. At kung yung ating bansa is basically dynastic, yung politics, sa Mindanao, hindi lang dynastic, clannish.
Yes.
Kaya halimbawa, you have areas like Basilan, ang magkalaban ay magkapatid, the Hatamans. Kaya very personal yung labanan. That's why it becomes more violent. At very dominant, halimbawa, yung vote denial. Kung alam mo yung kalaban mo ay malakas sa ganitong barangay, gagawa ka ng paraan para hindi makaboto yung barangay na yun. By any means.
Said dirty tricks.
Possible.
Yes.
No? Kaya ngayong araw na ito, baka dominant yung the dark side of the force. No? Dito papasok yung vote buying, yung violence, vote denial, special operations, etc. No? Noong 2008, kasama ako sa consultant para doon sa first computerized election sa ARMM, Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao.
Then ARMM.
Doon sa, siyempre, it's modern. Dahil sinusubukan yung PICOS dito. Pero kausap ko nga yung governor noon, si Zaldi Ampatuan, na nakakulong ngayon. No? Ang sabi niya ay, buti na lang wala akong kalaban. Dahil kung may kalaban ako, ang dami namin puputulin na daliri para dun sa computerization. Sinabi niya, harapan dun sa... Ibig sabihin, kahit ano yung system, no? Kung yung substance ay dynastic, yung substance ay pre-modern, yung substance ay warlordism, baliwala lang yung omnibus election code mo. So it's a combination ng form at saka substance. Kailangan natin baguhin yung substance no? At merong mga low-hanging fruits na pwedeng gawin dyan. No? Dahil it's basically law enforcement. Ang problema mo sa law enforcement, kasama yung mga law enforcers mo dito sa election, dito sa ng mga warlords, ng mga politiko, etc. Kaya walang enforcement. But that can be done overnight. No? Kung merong political will, kung merong diin yung national government, pwedeng gawin yan. Hindi kinakailangan ng legislation dyan na mahaba. So, may mga low-hanging fruits na pwedeng i-implement para mabago at least bahagi ng ating bankrupt electoral and political system na nakikita natin sa iba't ibang bahagi ng ating bansa, especially sa local election. Wala namang patayan sa national Wala naman tayong narinig ng patayan ng mga senador.
Figurative ang patayan. Balikan ko lang yung sinabi mo, Ronald, doon sa clan, no? Kala ko puro dynastic coverage yung pag-uusapan natin. Pero may clans, ang daming layers Clanish, dynastic. Gusto kong balikan si Japet sa DC. Kasi na-mention niya yung mga intermarriage na nabubuwag.
Yes.
A marriage of convenience that Japet just mentioned to us just moments ago. Japet, I wanted to pick up on the 10th alliances that you mentioned. Because it's an interesting dynamic that you're seeing now between two families that are now warring. And it's really changing the dynamic well into 2028. But first, I wanted to get your thoughts on how the campaigns went in this kind of scenario where we had a dissolution of the team that put them together during the presidential election. Japet.
Yes, the dissolution of the Unity Alliance yielded a lot of interesting results. For the first time during his kickoff for the Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas slate, President Marcos was making subtle digs at his opponents in the Duterte camp, saying that I have candidates of integrity, I have candidates that will do the job correctly, and I will have candidates that will not sell the country out to Chinese interests or even yield an inch to China in the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea. So previously, the difficulties in that marriage were all under wraps. You hear a bunch of different rumors of Sara Duterte being displeased at not being the Secretary of National Defense, or you hear whisperings of infighting, only for it to come out into the open last November with the explosive video that she released to the public during her press conference where she was threatening to kill the president, and the subsequent and very quick reaction from the Philippine National Police, the Philippine National Police, and from the House of Representatives in impeaching her, I thought was pretty much the last nail in the straw for that alliance. So seeing them fight against each other now, seeing their disinformation machinery be put against each other, I think is a very different riff off of a very familiar 2022 scenario. Just like I mentioned earlier, you're seeing lots of astroturfing campaigns that are repeating pro-Duterte narratives, whether it's painting former President Rodrigo Duterte as a martyr imprisoned for political reasons, or decrying or maligning the president and painting him as a drug user like former President Rodrigo Duterte used to. So if this will intensify as these next 3 years go on, or especially after the results of this midterm election, and especially with Vice President Sara Duterte's political fate hanging in the balance, depending on the results of this Senate slate, it'll be very interesting to watch.
Well, I wanted to direct this question for Alan. After that split of the Unity team, how has the tone and strategy of each candidate's or each party's strategy, how did that change And I wanted to lay the ground by focusing on what you call your three acronyms, AIM.
Right.
Tell us about that, Alan.
Well, the AIM stands for Alert, Inspire, and Motivate. That talks about campaign messaging, meaning to say, scare them into voting for you.
That's alert.
That's alert. If you don't vote for me, the Philippines will turn into a drug state. Your loved ones will be mugged. Your house will be raided by criminals. Inspire is something greater than you, which SEC is very, very familiar with. Gobyernong tapat, angat buhay lahat, daang matuwid, good governance.
Good governance.
That would be inspire. And motivate would be, if you vote for me, I'm going to give you more ayuda. If you vote for me, I'm going to give you X jobs, or rice will become 20 pesos. Promises, short-term gains for a short-term action. So dovetailing that into the dynamic that happened, that split, that seismic split that happened between the Marcoses and the Dutertes. I think early on we saw that it was obvious that the Marcos camp was going to use all its available infrastructure to try to dismantle the Duterte brand. They started with the hearings, the Quadcom hearings were, wow, that was a national pastime. And it was all about just throwing everything they could at the Duterte brands. There was the impeachment. So they were using the machinery that was available to them to dismantle the brand. I think what they possibly miscalculated, because for a while, in my opinion at least, not to give any commentary to it, I think it was evident that the vice president was getting affected. The word that was being used was that she came undone, she became unhinged. She went on that rant, that dark Zoom call, the infamous Zoom call, threatening, etc., losing her cool. So for a while it was working. I think what they tactically might have miscalculated was the arrest and bringing to of we don't want to call it a kidnapping. Well, you can form your own opinion on that, right? But bringing the former president to The Hague, I think, was something that they miscalculated. In my opinion, I think they should have done that far earlier. I think they ran out of runway for the suction effect, the consolidation, to peter out. I think they did that a little too close to the elections. I think if they had done that a couple of months before they did, there would have been that consolidation, but the Filipinos being notorious amnesia in terms of electoral branding, I think that would have petered out, and I think they could have regained some of their momentum.
Well, when you say miscalculated, this also factor in the sympathy that the Filipinos sort of had for the former president.
Right.
Because you had that image of a frail, old...
Senior citizen,
being brought to the Netherlands against his own will.
Right.
And that sort of backfired against the administration.
That's precisely that, Ms. Pawi. I think they miscalculated that sympathy that created that, we call it a suction effect, rebound effect, consolidation, many terms for it in my profession. But essentially, they didn't map out the longevity of the sympathy well, in my opinion. I think the succeeding surveys clearly showed that this was the inflection point that allowed these PDP candidates to surge. Bongo surged to #1. Sec Ronald's favorite candidate suddenly went very firmly on the top 6, talking about Bator de la Rosa. So it was that. Even Philip Salvador somehow made it to the... We don't know. We're counting it right now. Bilang Pilipino,
significant gains,
Binibilang natin ngayon yan. He might just make it. So I think they miscalculated the longevity, the fallout, the residual effects of that. I would have done it earlier, honestly.
Senator Amy and her investigation
Your favorite.
into the arrest, the detention of the former president.
Well, sabi ko nga
Was
dito...
that expected? And what did that do to the full slate of the
sabi ko nga dito
administration
before,
bets? Because it's a significant
nasobrahan
lead,
siya
yes,
sa
but not dominant.
Nasobrahan siya sa pamamangka sa dalawang ilog. No, eventually, nireject naman siya ng dalawang ilog.
Pero tinanggap siya
Sumadsad.
because in a last-minute
baliwala na-
announcement, ang sabi ng PDP, nung 48 hours ago
Inandap siya.
lang,
guest candidate.
yes, and they were very, very specific in why they actually adopted Senator Amy and Senator and Representative
72
Camille
hours,
is
wala
because they need more allies to protect the vice president from impeachment.
Pero baliwala na yan 48 hours.
Yeah, that's,
Ang labanan ngayon nitong last week is machinery.
Yes.
Endorsements, may impact yan 6 months ago, 4 months ago, even 3 months ago.
70 days,
Pero
thereabouts.
48 hours, walang impact na yun because it's no longer a battle for market votes. It is now a battle for the machinery, the negotiated votes. No, yan yung labanan ngayon. Kaya, at ikalawa, ay siyempre, iba yung in-endorse ni Digong. Ang in-endorse niya si Gringo at saka si Ariel Querubin. At eventually, dinala yun ng PDP laban. So, confused ngayon ng mga tao. Sino ba talaga? No? Wala nang impact yung last 48 hours na yan. No? Pero gusto ko lang dagdagan yung nabanggit ni Alan na hindi lang ito, mas mabuti sana kung ginawa nila earlier, yung pag-arrest kay Digong. Pero I doubt if it is a surge. A surge kasi, ibig sabihin nakakuha ka sa undecided at saka doon sa kampo ng iyong kalaban. It's more a consolidation at tightening ng base nila na dati ay hindi pinapansin yung kanilang mga kandidato or kulang yung pagpansin. Dati naman nasa top 2 na si Bongo eh. Naging number 1 siya, at least sa dalawang surveys. Sa dalawang survey, iba eh. So titignan mo rin yung mga surveys dahil magkakaiba sila eh. Pero it's more a tightening. Yung base nila na dati ay passive, naging active ngayon. Pero not enough para ipanalo yung kanilang kandidato. I still believe dalawa lang yung mananalo sa kanila, as shown by the surveys. Ang pinaglalabanan nila ngayon, at most ay 2 seats, probably 1. At yung naglalaban dyan, 8 hanggang 10. May 3 kang admin, meron kang isang independent, may 2 kang opposition na pink, meron kang 2 opposition na Duterte. Yun yung battleground ngayon.
All for the 11-12.
Pero yung 10, tapos na yan eh. Even 11, possibly. Pero ang nagkamali ay narrative. Paano mo naman makikita ang binayolate yung human rights ni Digong? Paano mo naman matitignan siya na napaka-gentle at napaka-kawawang lolo? Ibig sabihin, dapat tinapatan mo yon ng maayos na narrative din. Doon nagkulang ang gobyerno. Di ba? Hindi nila ikiniskis yung biktima. Yung mga biktima, yung mga kapatid, yung mga nanay, yung mga lola, no? Yun dapat ang pinantapat nila dito sa sympathy narrative ng mga Duterte. Di ba? Nawala yun eh. So, ang labanan sa politika natin, paramihan ng mali. Hindi pagalingan eh. Yun yung problema. No? A rush to the bottom. No? Kaya yun dapat ang labanan. At doon magagaling yung mga tipo ni Alan. How they wag the dog.
But I'd like to ask
Dogs are very well wagged. Thank you very much.
You mentioned something interesting kanina that the turning point was when, let's use the word transferred to the Netherlands.
Okay, there you go.
When the
Perfect.
former president was transferred to the Netherlands, I saw, and a lot of people saw, a dynamic shift in the way Marcos handled its campaign.
Yes.
Initially from, boasting of its successes in the last 2-3 years, nag-shift sila into the defensive. And it became a personality-based campaign for both sides. Instead
Absolutely.
of issues, parang it's either your Duterte or your Marcos. Did you see that shift?
Very, very astute point. That shift was very evident and very tactile. In fact, perhaps is the best word to use. And that's the reason why the message shifted so jarringly, perhaps. Because when these Alianza candidates tried to go to Mindanao, and I know this for a fact, when they tried to go to Mindanao for their sorties, let's just say it didn't go very well for them after that arrest. So they had to meaningfully shift their campaigns.
So who benefited?
Well, in terms of overall, I would say 100% the PDP candidates, especially the page 2 ones. I mean, you're talking about the Jimmy Bondocs who were in the page 2 in the surveys. Philip Salvador was in page 2. Kong Dante Marcoleta, I think, was lagging behind in the surveys. Suddenly, they surged. Philip Salvador in particular, I mean, I like to crack jokes about it, but this was the candidate that really, really leveraged on that event. His entire speech, I promise you, if you listen to his entire speech, they're given about 3 minutes on the stage. His entire speech from start to finish is just bring him home, shouting, bring him home. Bring him home! Bring him home! In various,
But the change in
tones and
narrative
timbres.
started last December on the budget.
Yes.
Before the budget issue, nasa corner yung mga Duterte. They were very defensive.
Yes,
no?
exactly.
Pero nung budget na nangyari, bumaliktad. Yung gobyerno, the Marcoses, were now on the defensive and in a corner. At nagpatuloy na yan. No? So again, it's a battle of narrative. No? At medyo natatalo yung gobyerno doon sa battle of narrative na yan. Naiiba itong midterm elections na ito. Yung usual dito, it's a midterm election. This is a referendum, a plebiscite on the president and his government. Pero yung naiiba ay after a historic win noong 2022. First time na isang kandidato nakakuha ng 61% ng boto. That has never happened before. Pero almost overnight, nag-unravel yung uniteam na yan. At ngayon yung first battle royale nila. Ito yung, after that historic uniteam win, ngayon ay meron silang existential battle. This is not a simple battle for votes. This is a battle for survival. If the Dutertes survive this battle, not dominate, but survive, they will get momentum going into 2028. And there will be hell to pay. No? Kaya at the same time, the Dutertes are facing impeachment, ICC, criminal charges. They're also fighting a survival battle. So hindi to simpleng labanan. At pangatlo, this is the first time na merong ganitong klaseng dynastic war between two massive families na nasa shadow of the great game, the game of the superpowers. Ito yung first time na very clear sino sinusuportahan ng China, sino sinusuportahan ng US. And that will play out going into the presidential election in 2028. 3 years ang ating labanan ngayon. At that will be basically a battle of narratives.
Battle of narratives, battle for survival. Gentlemen, we're just going to pause this conversation, but we have more in this discussion in a few minutes. Bilang Pilipino 2025 will be right back after this break. Keep it here on One News.
Santos Recto. Sina Luis at Jessie na una na, pero kanina nakausap ko nga sila at kinikwento ka ni Luis.
Welcome back. You're watching One News special coverage of the 2025 midterm elections. All right, so Kathy, Diego, Pauline, in any election day, usually yung pinakamalaking tanong is sino yung mga kandidato na makakakuha ng boto. But it is, of course, important to know where those votes will actually be coming from. Let's talk about the voting blocks. Unahin natin. Okay, here. Alam natin, meron tayong mga voting blocks. We have the Solid North, we have the L2L corridor, we have the Solid South, as they call it, as well as the rest of the Philippines. Unahin natin itong Solid North. Now, the Solid North, of course, composed of the Ilocos region, Cordillera Administrative Region, as well as Caraga Valley. They account for around 7.1 million votes, just 10% of the total votes. We do have 68.43 registered voters this 2025. Yung Solid North, it gained prominence, as we all know, during the rule of Ferdinand Marcos Sr., who is a known Ilocos Norte native. Now, his supporters stayed loyal even after his ousting in 1986, and that stayed true for his son, President Bongbong Marcos, in the 2016 and 2022 elections, as well as for his daughter, Senator Amy Marcos, in 2019. So, 10%, it's not necessarily enough to get you a win, but it is good enough to jumpstart any candidate's campaign. So, abangan natin kung Solid North pa rin nga ba ang Solid North, quote-unquote, this 2025. Puntahan naman natin yung tinatawag na L2L corridor. Why is this very important? Critical daw to for any candidate. Mag-uumpisa yan dito sa area ng Pangasinan all the way to Quezon or Lucena in Quezon. So tignan natin ha, yung L2L corridor is 27.1 million voters. That is around 41% of the total votes. Bakit to importante? Because they said, well, number one, maraming vote-rich regions ang na-included in the L2L corridor. Number two nga dyan actually is Cavite, right here. But we'll dive deeper into that later on when we talk about the vote-rich provinces. Pero L2L corridor kasi, they said that voters there tend to be more media savvy. They vote based on platforms, based on debates, based on media campaigns. And again, 27 million votes, hindi mo mapagkakaila. Napakalaking chunk ng mga botante. Sama po dyan yung NCR, which also accounts for mga 10 to 11%. So in total, especially for national elections, 51% pag makuha mo yung L2L corridor, you're good, di ba? And then, puntahan natin ngayon ang tinatawag na Solid South. Especially, actually, maaasahan mo yan dito daw sa Davao region at saka sa Soxargen. So, same with Solid North, if they are supporters of the administration, yung Solid South naman, known to support the former administration, and they too tend to support Mindanao-based candidates, katulad na lang nila former President Rodrigo Duterte back in 2016, VP Sara, 2022. Pero malaking tanong, Solid South pa nga rin ba? Dahil syempre, nung huling eleksyon, merong unity.
Yeah, Denise, I take an interest in the L2L corridor, na Lingayen to Lucena, because it's a mixture of either a command vote or a market vote. And it's really so interesting because kung command vote, yan yung mga influenced by political kingpins. Pero pag market vote, yun yung talagang kung ano yung napupusuan nung bumoboto. So ano yung parang magiging impact? Sabihin natin, manggaling ang mga boto sa rehiyon na yan. Kasi at least 40% of the
actually, hanggang
vote.
41%.
41%.
Pwede raw hanggang 41%.
The possibility that a candidate can win because may support
All right,
sa L2L.
ladies, we're going to get back to that conversation. We're just going to toss it over now to MJ Marfori, who's speaking to Batangas Governor candidate Vilma Santos.
Nagbabay na.
So that interview just ended, but we do know Vilma Santos is running once again for governor in
And
Batangas
along
together with her son.
Her son. So it's, yes.
With her
That's
sons,
correct.
yes, even
Another
her
sons.
dynasty in
Recto.
the making there. But yes, really wonderful to see her. She has two faces here. It's like she's in entertainment and she's in politics, and she's been in politics for the longest
Yes,
time.
that's right.
Well,
Sabihin mo lang
it's-
Batangas, and you can
There are a
can
lot of
already
celebrities who
remember her name.
get into politics.
Yeah,
so
the
this
name
is-
recall and all that. We'll get to that. I mean, the
Well, yeah.
importance really of the recall and also the celebrity status. But yes, the market votes are quite important, and hopefully it could determine the election
Aside
of,
from-
of whoever ends up in the Magic 12.
Kathy, alam natin, isa sa mga binabalik-balikan ng mga kandidato is always number one, Cebu. Again, we'll talk more about that later on, ng mga vote-rich provinces. Pero ang tinututukan talaga yung L2L because sabi nga nila, ito ay nakabase sa plataforma, sa nakikita nilang media campaigns, sa mga debate. So technically, I don't know if we can say this, parang swing voters, hindi pa siya as solid as kung pumunta ka sa norte at sa south. So yan ang crucial for any candidate.
Well, we can ask Alan about this. He is a strategist after all.
There you go. There you go. Very, very well put, Denise. That was a masterclass in the geopolitical landscape of the Philippines. Although, as far as the L2L corridor being astute voters and very discerning voters, listening to debates and studying platforms and strategies, you know what? Much as I would love to believe that, and I hope it's true, I think that the corridor would still follow the national trend, which is in terms of national elections, voters are still looking, unfortunately, for distractions. And on the local level, they're looking for solutions. So our hope is in the local level. But very, very well laid out and outlined by Denise. Thanks.
But it looks like MJ Marfori is joining us right
okay.
now to talk us. We don't have her
don't
just
have her.
yet. Well, let's pick up on that then. I
Yeah.
mean, local distraction, local solutions, and on the
right.
national
Right.
distraction. There is a disconnect.
There is a disconnect, yeah.
Well, I wanted to pick up on that because we hadn't talked about the other party, the remnants of Leni Robredo's
Yeah.
group,
Right.
and which is in the L2L corridor. Maybe
Right.
I could go to Japheth and ask him about the remnants and what he sees is happening right now with the kind of endorsements that former VP Leni is making, and also the support that she has given to the candidates who are allied with her. They refuse to be called the traditional opposition, but in this case they are, supporting BAM as well as Kiko. Japet.
Yes, in former Vice President Leni Robredo's support for Kiko and Bam Aquino, there's a lot of the same emulation of that same 2022 spirit of volunteerism, of grassroots campaigns, of reaching out to people, trying to get more and more people involved in the campaign, person by person, little by little, community by community, door to door, just like in the spirit of how it used to be with similar energies that same with the rallies. You can see former Vice President Robredo lending her energy to a lot of these sorties, to a lot of these big campaign events to try and make sure that her popularity, her stamp of approval, and her brand of gobyernong tapat, continued good governance, continues to live on in Bam Aquino or Kiko Pangilinan. And of course, the social media campaigns for this are also just as fierce, right? When you're fighting an entire disinformation campaign from both the Marcos and Duterte camps, they have to make sure that they're punchy, that they're to the point, that they can make an impact with their campaign promises and what they hope to deliver to the average everyday Filipino on a local level, on a day-to-day level, on a personal level.
Just very quickly, Japhet, before you go, because we have to let you go, it's already midnight in Washington, D.C.
No problem.
She did support Abalos as well as Pacquiao. And a lot of people got surprised that she did. What do you make of that? Is it a strategic move? And if so, what does it mean for 2028?
The Pacquiao part didn't surprise me as much. I remember in the 2022 elections, she was asked, kung hindi ka tatakbong bilang presidente, sinong pipiliin mo? Sinabi niya, Manny Pacquiao. He has a good heart and he means well and I know him well and I would lend my support to him. Right? It seems to me that former Vice President Leni Robredo is trying to be more strategic with what kind of camp can be built in 2028, right? Pink movement doesn't have a front runner for 2028. A lot of the machinery kind of evaporated in the wake of the 2022 election, only to be given a new life now with the candidacies of Pamakino or Kiko Pangilinan, right? Trying to create these connections, even if they're within that disparate opposition, in the disparate unit team or the disparate alianza ng Bagong Pilipinas, could help get her a foothold or get her movement a foothold moving forward. Show that they're willing to work across the aisle with people who are ideologically diverse or people who are more interested in getting to bread and butter issues like her campaign might have, right?
I'd like to, Alan or Ronald, I'd like to ask you, we're talking about Lenny's campaign, we're also talking about Solid North. I'd like to ask anyone about the Solid South.
Right.
Now you take a look at that southern area, that southern corridor. Of course, you have Davao region, given it's a Duterte bailiwick.
Absolutely.
But I'd like to ask about the outskirts of the Davao region. Who holds these regions, these areas? Is it still solid Duterte, or do we see a loss of confidence for Duterte in those areas?
Well, not quite as I think the data would support that it's not quite as solid as it is in Davao, which is really the Dutertes can do no wrong in Davao, definitely. But in areas like Cebu, Metro Cebu, the support for Duterte would still be prominent. It would still overtake, I would think.
Medyo may
based on the
dissonance
data.
sa survey sa Mindanao eh. Halimbawa, mga survey sa Mindanao shows that two-thirds from isang survey 51%, isang survey ay 63%. Sang-ayon yung mga Mindanaoans na litisin si Digong sa ICC. Pero in the same survey, may more than 50% approval rating si Sara.
Yep.
Kaya medyo weird yung mga surveys na yan. Siguro, dapat sagutin ng mga survey firms, ano yung contradictions na yan? At bakit sila mismo magkakaiba ng resulta sa survey? Siyempre, may mga survey are more equal than others. Lalo na yung mga luma na established na. No? Pero, ayun nga, may dissonance na kinakailangang sagutin at harapin. Bakit may two-thirds ka na sinasabi na dapat litisin si Digong sa ICC, and yet in the same survey, more than 50% yung approval rating ni Sara. Pero nag-agree ako kay Alan na merong bagong dynamics. Hindi na yan as solid as before. No? At yung latest endorsement ni Digong na hindi in-endorse ni Sara, makikita mo na naman yung pagdating ng family feud, which started in 2022 na gusto ni Digong tumakbo si Sara for president, si Bongo as vice, at hindi nangyari yan. At pumunta pa si Sara doon sa presidente na binabanatan ni Digong. Noong December 2021, naalala nyo? Binanatan ni Digong si BBM. So, ang nakikita natin ngayon, parang revival ng family feud. No?
It's an election of dissonance, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, let's not even get to China, right? Let's not even get to
Pwede natin
pro-China.
ibenta sa Netflix itong storyang
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
Nakita
yeah.
kong alas 12 na, at we're 7 hours into our voting. If you haven't voted, please go for it. Yun nga lang, ang init.
Habol lang,
ayun
yeah.
nga, nainitan na rin tayo dito sa studio. Pero pwede pang
Pero
humabol until
remember,
7
numbers,
p.m.
once in a
Official
lifetime lang
numbers
yan.
I'm curious, I'm dying.
Wala pa yan.
Well, we'll get more on those official numbers soon as they're up, but we'll get those reports and discussions that matter on that vote. So keep it here on One News. We'll be back after the break. It's 12:06 Philippine Standard Time. Welcome back to our coverage of Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Kathy Yang.
Join us in the next 2 hours as we bring you news and views you can use when you place your votes today. I'm Jago Castro.
And we have the big story on the ground from the full force of Media Quest's news teams, our reporters and stringers strategically placed nationwide. I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And throughout the day, One News will be bringing you reports from our mobile journalists and TV5 correspondents situated in key areas. Our mobile journalist, Mary Monray, is monitoring the situation at the COMELEC in the bailiwicks of President and the Vice President. We have Julie Baisa and Bril Montalvo.
In Metro Manila, Denise Valdesancho is monitoring the voting in Manila. Isa Abello is in Quezon City. John Francis Rivera is in Caloocan, while Kayla Macantan is in Taguig. For Makati, we have Arles de los Santos. Evan Tarinque is in Marikina. And Yeda Pascual in Las Piñas.
Now in Abra, we have Rainiel Pawid. Amy Atienza will also bring us the latest from Batangas, while Jazz Paredes will be reporting live from Rizal. We also have stringers from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao monitoring today's election.
Let's check in on Ilocos Norte, the political stronghold of President Bongbong Marcos. We've got mobile journalist Julie Baisa joining us now for the latest updates. Julie, what's going on there?
Yes, Kathy, patuloy nang bumoboto yung mga kapatid natin dito sa Kalayab Elementary School in Lawag City. Pasado alas 10 na matapos bumoto sina First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, Presidential Sons at Representative Sandro Marcos, Vinnie Marcos and Simon Marcos. Si Representative Sandro Marcos ay kumakandidato at unopposed dito sa 1st District ng Ilocos Norte. Sa short interview, hinikayat ni Congressman Sandro ang mga kababayan natin na bumoto, to go out to vote, sino man daw yung kanilang sinusuportahan. Kanina, around 7 a.m. naman ang bumoto sa Mariano Marcos Elementary School sa Batac City, si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Kasama niya dyan si dating First Lady Imelda Marcos at si Presidential Sister Irene Marcos. Bago bumoto, may hawak ni listahan si PBBM. Ang sabi niya, wala naman daw sorpresa doon sa listahan na hawak niya. Habang bumoboto naman, nakaranas ng minor technical glitch si Pangulo. Hindi ka agad pumasok sa automated counting machine yung kanyang balota, pero eventually ay naayos naman. Pagkatapos bumoto, kaagad daw bumalik ng Manila sa Malacanang si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos para bantayan ang magiging resulta ng halalan. Pagdating naman sa local, dito sa Ilocos Norte, particular sa Lawag, Marcos din yung isa sa mga kandidato. Kandidato si incumbent Mayor Michael Marcos Kion na first cousin ni PBBM. Kakatapos-tapos lang diyang bumoto actually. Pero hindi siya yung inendorso ng Pangulo. Ang manok ng Pangulo, yung kalaban niya na si Brian Alcid.
Julie, imposibleng hindi maganap yung mga glitches, ano? Pero ano yung ginagawa ng COMELEC dyan? Sakaling maganap yon at ano ang payo para doon sa botante kung ano ang dapat gawin?
Actually, kanina si PBBM yung unang nakaranas or isa sa mga unang nakaranas ng glitches kasi maaga siyang bumoto. Nung mga senior citizen pa lang yung bumoboto, merong dalawang nag-a-assist sa kanila, tumutulong kung paano nga maipapasok na maayos yung balota. And nung dumating naman sina PBBM, ganun din yung ginawa nila. So ang COMELEC, dito yung mga staff, yung mga personnel dito, merong mga nakaantabay para sakali man na magkaroon ng glitches or meron bang report ng problema kasi we're receiving different reports sa iba't ibang lugar din dito na merong mga hindi nagre-reflect na names. So, bina-verify kaagad ng COMELEC yan at kaagad nagpapadala ng tao para ma-minutes and ma-record and ma-resolve din yung nagiging problema sa mga presinto.
Okay, maraming salamat. Judy Baisa, our mobile journalist joining us from Ilocos Norte. Naisip ko tuloy, ang init na ngayon, ano?
Yeah.
Kung sino yung magtiyaga na pumunta ngayon, siguro kumain muna ng lunch.
Sa Ilocos, supposed to be 39 degrees daw.
Ayun nga, I was looking at the heat index.
37 to
Isa yun
39,
sa mga problema. Ano? At isang problema din, yung kadalasan, yung nagkaroon na tayo ng mga PCOS machines, yung pag-overheat
That's right.
ng mga makina. And it's so heartbreaking to see na yung electric fan na dapat talaga doon sa election
voters,
watcher.
Sa machine.
nakatutok sa machine. So wala pa naman ako nakikita ngayon. So hopefully, no, it does not happen. Pero yun parang mga challenges that we face. Kasi nakita nga ninyo, walang aircon doon sa pinagbutuhan ni PBBM. Ganon din sa
Well, the new
kalakang
machines are
bansa.
supposedly lighter, and well, we had them on the big story. You guys also
Yes,
had them,
we had
right?
them,
You
that's
had a
right.
live demonstration, and it did withstand the hot temperature here in the studio. So hopefully
Well,
it will
they said
also be
it
fine.
supposedly had 2 more fans built in than the original
Yes.
Pico's machine. But the problem is when they've been testing it, it was in a controlled environment. Kumbaga may aircon, di ba? So hindi nila, I don't know if they were able to test it in a 40-degree temperature with a lot of uses from different people. So anyway, let's see as we go on later
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Well, his vote went through, so that's
Yes,
a
well, that's
positive.
important. All right, let's now head on to the bailiwick of Vice President Sara Duterte in the South. We have News 5's Mindanao correspondent Bril Montalvo live in Davao City. Bril, ano oras bumoto si VP Sara?
Rales dito nga sa Sidoro Palmel Elementary.
Yes, Bril, audio.
Sa anumang magiging resulta mamaya or bukas sa 2025 bilang Pilipino kung matatalo.
Yun nga yung question ko
Yeah.
Today ba o bukas? Kasi sabi ni Alan and Ronald, naghihintay na kayo ng mga
Initial
datos.
results.
Datos, yeah.
But I wasn't expecting any at this time. Magkakaroon nga ba, Ronald? I mean, what's the chances that we can already see it this early? Under a new company, no, Miru.
Mas mabilis. Gaano kabilis? Is it
So tonight pa, hindi,
Promisa
not this
na.
afternoon, yeah, tonight.
Promisa ng COMELEC yan. Baka ang hindi pa pumasok yung last seat sa Senate halimbawa. Lalo na kung may magreklamo. So, ide-defer yun. Pero tingin ko yung 10 to 11, tapos na yan by tonight.
And we saw that last elections, during the presidential elections, that the results came in rather quickly to the consternation of some people. Actually, they're like, what? Natulog lang ako, pagising ko, laki na ng lamang. So I would expect that the data would already have a shape, would have shaped up by this evening, I would think.
Yung
We would
2019 kasi may
already
mga
have a
delays
Yeah.
Kaya naging controversial yung 2019. Pero
Yes.
yung 2022 naman, sobrang bilis. Naging controversial din siya. So,
Pero
There's a
gusto
sweet spot
natin,
there
gusto
somewhere.
ba natin mabagal o mabilis?
Yeah,
Ano ba
there's
ang
a sweet spot
katamtaman?
there
Yan ang parang tanong
Yung middle ground natin.
Kaya nga yung lente, yung isang
Lente.
watchdog, ang proposal nila, i-review at i-overhaul yung ating Omnibus Election Code. Dahil ang dami na daw problema, ang dami ng weaknesses, simula nung ginawa siya. Kaya I agree. Kasama sa proposal, baka hybrid. No? May manual at merong computerized. Pero then again,
Why
ang
not online?
Yeah.
Blockchain,
Yeah.
di ba?
Pero ang usapin
Online.
dito pa rin, yung substance. Pwede mong i-modernize yung form, pero kung yung substance mo is still dynastic, clannish,
Walang
corrupt.
pinagpipilian.
So, parang kanya garbage in, it will be garbage out. So, yun yung, it's not the form lang It has to be the substance.
Pero balikan ko lang doon yung sinabi mong hybrid because una kong narinig yan kay Contra Daya. It's already been a call for many, many months or maybe elections na why don't we do manual count before we pass it on to the machine? Sang-ayon ba kayo, Ronald? And
Well, in
Alan?
principle, yes. Pero it's in the details Paano ba gagawin yan? Yun yung kailangan natin makita. No? How it's going to be done. No? Parang kanya, it's a framework, but it's the details which will determine that. Kaya yun yung gusto namin malaman. Tapos ano yung mga models niyan sa ibang bansa na nag-work. No? Halimbawa, pag election observer ako sa Europe, nakakaingit Dahil yung kandidato, poll watcher, yung kandidato, siya naguhulog ng balota ng mga bumoboto. Bakit? Wala silang history ng election fraud. No? Kaya nakakaingit.
Estonia.
No?
My goodness, in Estonia, they're given tablets. Each voter has a tablet. They vote in their homes,
Yeah.
counted immediately. So that's a dream, hopefully.
Well, supposedly these new ACMs are 3 times faster than the VCMs we had previously, no? So we're going to wait and see if they're indeed faster and more efficient. But I just wanted to go back since we didn't have Bril reporting from Davao
Yeah, from
City.
Davao City.
I wanted to ask our gentleman over here about The mayoral race in Davao is between none other than former President Rodrigo Duterte
Yeah.
and Carlo Nograles. What are the chances of Carlo Nograles being the first non-Duterte to run Davao City since 2001?
None.
Yeah, Ronald, what are
None.
the chances?
34
You tell me,
years
Ronald.
of
None.
a Duterte reign.
None. No
I
chance.
would pin it as,
Tapos na election dyan.
maybe his chances of becoming the first non-Duterte mayor are equivalent to my chances of being named regular anchor on the One
Parang,
News.
parang
Well, never say never.
Pero magkakaroon ng technicality, hindi ba? Kasi if sabihin natin, the winner cannot take his oath from where he's at,
It was never a hindrance naman eh. We've had
it's never been a hindrance
we've had
because-
senators who have served from prison. We've had congressmen who served their
and
entire
that they took their oaths in prison, in
who
detention.
spent their
Wala
entire
pang-
tenure in prison.
Wala pang final conviction. No?
Pwede pa yan.
Pwede pa yan. Pero at the same time, pwedeng magpasya na yung vice president ang pumalik. No? Pero at the same time, kung kalaban ng gobyerno yung vice president, pwede pa rin siya masuspend.
Is that possible ba?
You're in the Philippines. Everything is
Everything
possible.
is possible.
here.
No, kasi same last name. Ay, hindi sila same party though.
Hindi. Congress yun eh.
Right,
yung sa
right.
executive,
Alan.
succession yan eh.
You mentioned kanina, there were senators definitely in the past who were able to hold office.
Yes,
But there was I heard another pundit say, but physically he is incapable to do so because he won't even be granted access to the internet via there. So what
Absolutely.
happens now? Is it the vice mayor? Is it the second one who ran to him? What's going to happen?
I would think the most logical
It's the vice mayor.
is the vice mayor. The most
vice-
logical
who
step would
is-
be the vice mayor.
Well, the race
son.
is between
son.
Bernie Alag and Baste Duterte. So,
Right.
Unless mahanapan siya ng kaso, aakyat naman yung first councilor.
And the chances of Duterte losing that race are perhaps equivalent to my chances of fitting into Pawi's.
Pero si Basti kasi
Alright.
is not popular as a mayor. No? Ang tingin sa kanya ay sleeping on the job. Kaya hindi nga siya pinatakbo as mayor eh. Dahil delikado siya kung siya yung tatakbo.
okay, so we'll circle back to our conversation about the Davao politics. But for now, let's speak to TV5's MJ Marfori. She is in Batangas, where Vilma Santos earlier voted. Hi, MJ. What can you tell us?
Yun na. Nabeso.
Hi, Kathy. Yes, well, the question today is, will star power prevail? Because that is a big question, as of course, the Star for All Seasons, Vilma Santos and her family did cast their vote here in Inosloban, Maraboy Elementary School in Lipa, Batangas. She is running for governor, but this time around, she is bringing in her sons, Luis Manzano and Ryan Recto. We did speak with her about her overall experience during the campaign season, this election season. What's the difference this time around? Listen to this.
And definitely God will take care of the rest. And whatever happens, manalo kami, we are prepared. Matalo kami, may purpose sa Panginoon. Basta ang importante, ginawa namin ang lahat.
Tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Ito yung sagot nyo kasi syempre hindi na po natatapos ever since yung sinasagot nyo na political dahil na sinasabi nila.
Wala.
Pero sinasabi mo nga yung iba, incumbent.
Ano naman, natural na yun, hindi lang naman kami. But you know, I guess the most important thing is, nagsilbi kami, nag-offer kami, people will decide, hindi naman kami. So mga tao na magdedesisyon, hindi na kami. Alam lang namin yung programang pwede namin gawin at magagawa for Batangueños. And I guess yun ang mas importante dahil alam namin ang gagawin namin to serve the Batangueños.
Bringing in your sons, what did you tell them this time around?
No, it's...
Be lucky. Diba?
No, I always tell them, we are so blessed. With Ralph pa ako, we are so blessed. Now, nasa edad na sila. Baka it's time naman na, it's their turn na ibalik naman yung biyayang yun sa mga taong nangangailangan. I mean, nasa edad na sila. I cannot be here forever. I mean, matanda na rin, senior citizen na rin ako. I mean, you know. Pero ang importante, well-guided sila. How to serve people. Sabi nga, if you're blessed, try to share it naman. And we're doing it now. Nasa tao naman, if they will understand that or not, they can bash us, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what's in your heart. And I've been here for 24 years already. I mean, hindi ko first time ito. Nahilingan lang ako. Hindi ako nag-presenta. Nahilinganin sino ako para tumanggi na binigay yung tiwala sa akin for 24 years. 24 na taon. Kaya ko pa naman, pero kailangan ko ng mga bagong tutok.
Kathy, I said earlier, will star power prevail? Well, that is a question because they are up against strong contenders. Basically, for the gubernatorial seat, Ate V is up against Mike Rivera from the Liberal Party, and he is being endorsed by outgoing Governor Dodo Mandanas, and Luis Manzano is up against him for a vice governor. And of course, for the 6th district of Batangas, for Ryan, he is also up against several candidates. And here in Lipa, there are, of course, 1.9 million registered voters. And yeah, let's see what's going to happen by the end of today, Kathy.
Right, star power will prevail. I'm going to hold on to that because there's a whole lot of narratives in that. Given that we do have a lot of celebrities hoping to get into the Magic 12. I've just counted maybe at least three at the top of my head. Dito Lapid, Bong Revilla, Willie Revillame.
And there's also a possibility of Philip Salvador, you were saying.
You're right. Kaya ang katanungan ngayon, is star power enough to get them to the Magic 12? Because may mga sumayaw ng budots sa TikTok, pero hindi naman nagustuhan ng mga taong bayan. Kailan ba ang maging accepted at ano ang dapat gawin? Kailan ang personality maging plataforma? Kung nangyayari man yun.
Very, very nuanced yung question mo, no, Kathy. Is star power enough? And we're looking at the list of candidates we have now. You'd consider Bong Revilla an actor, I would think. But he also comes from quite a formidable political dynasty, and he has spent some time in politics as well. Same with Senator Lito Lapid. Sorry, is he a senator? Senator ba si Lito? No, is he running? He's running, di ba?
Committee on Silence?
You never know when if and when Senator Lito Lapid is a senator.
Siguro on the nationwide level, it still works. No? Star power. On the local level, not necessarily. Dahil sa local, mas machinery yan than air war. Sa Senate, it's more market, votes, air war, at kaunting machinery.
70-30 yung split.
Yung machinery mas nandun sa mga dulo. Yung mga naglalaban for the last 2 or 3 seats. Doon nagmamatter yung machinery. Pero dun sa mga 10, it's about market. It's about peg, it's about brand, etc. On the local, then baka iba. 70 machinery, 30 market.
Maybe 60-40. But, let's not forget, the formula will always prevail. It's always awareness to choice. No matter which way you flip it, no matter which way you look at it, from whatever lens you take it, it will always be awareness to choice. So, in terms of securing the awareness, celebrities will always have that inherent advantage. Because the people are already aware of them because of their star power.
At huwag natin kalimutan, for the first time, more than 80% ng tumatakbo, especially sa local, walang kalaban. Walang kalaban. So walang choices masyado.
That's why I'm bored. That's why I'm bored.
I'd just like to circle back to Bril Montalvo, who is in the bailiwick of Vice President Sara Duterte, of course, in the South. And we have news. 5's Mindanao correspondent. Bril, are you there?
Ayan, si Bril.
Bril.
Tayo ngayon sa Teodoro Palmahila Elementary School sa Davao City kung saan boboto ang magkapatid na Carlo at Congresswoman Migs Nograles para sa Bilang Pilipino 2025. Alam nyo, kakatapos lang bumoto ni Attorney Carlo Nograles at ni PBA Party List Congresswoman Migs Nograles dito nga sa eskwelahan. At naging mapayapa naman ang kanilang pagboto at hindi sila natagalan sa proseso ng pagboto. At sa katunayan, kasama ko ngayon si PBA Party List Congresswoman Mix Nograles. Kung may mga katanungan kayo sa kanya, go ahead.
Ma'am, it's good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us sa Bilang Pilipino. Napaka-interesting po ng aming diskusyon dito while we were trying to get back the signal na yung labanan na yan, we do have a contender who is not where he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be in Davao pero nasa Hague nga. Ano ang views ng pamilya? In any which way the competition goes, how are you going to deal with the situation po?
Well, hindi ko pwedeng pangunahan ngayon, no? Because this is such a novel issue, even as a lawyer, right? We've never really encountered something to this extent. So we will have to see how we will be looking into it, how COMELEC will be looking into it, because right now, at this point, it's still the voting process, and we have yet to see the results. And when the results come, then let's cross the bridge when we get there, siguro.
Yes, based your last few weeks of the campaign, what are your experiences with dealing with the people in terms of how confident you feel right now at this point, pending the results?
Well, I've been going around since 2022, given that I am sitting as PBA Party List representative, no. So going around, yung difference lang talaga ngayon, siguro you're courting the people to choose you now to be elected as a district representative, and talking to the people, going around. It's been a mix of things, of course, especially that social media has been very, very rampant, I think, has a lot to do with the elections, not just for Davao, but for the entire Philippines. So, we will see. We will see naman na diba ang daming nangyayari sa social media. At the same time, sa ground naman, I'm just thankful for the opportunity that people have been listening to me talking to them, me asking for their help for today, and in return, sana matulungan ko sila in the next 3 years.
Attorney Miggs, well, you are running for first district representative. What would you say are the biggest issues that your region is currently facing right now?
The number one here, a lot of people would agree with me, would be really yung baha natin dito. Even if hindi malakas yung ulan, grabe yung baha, people don't go out. Once marinig nila yung thunder, nako, hindi na lalabas mga tao. Today, I'm experiencing dito sa school, sa Palma Hill. I can see yung classrooms pa lang, very igang kaayo, in Bisaya pa. So, we really need to also fix not just the schools, for teachers, education, but even the physical school. Kasi mahirap para sa mga bata to concentrate and to learn in an environment that's very, very hot and humid, and hindi maayos ang ventilation.
And your own experience, Attorney Miggs, in the voting process, how was it using the new Miro systems ACMs?
Thankfully, the precinct that I went to naman walang problema. The waiting time for me personally was 2 hours, which is actually shorter than expected because other people were expecting 4 hours to mga 5 hours. When I got to the classroom naman, okay naman after voting, smooth process, and hopefully it continues this way, not just for here but throughout the Philippines.
All right, well, good luck with the elections, and thank you for the time and for speaking to us. That was Attorney Miggs Nograles, first district representative candidate in Davao. And that was also News 5 correspondent Bryn Montalvo over there.
Ramdam mo talaga yung init, Tumatagaktak na yung pawis kay Bryn. Tayo rin dito on our second hour. Well, not yet. 1.5 hours down the line. But we'd like to thank our political strategist, si Ronald Llamas. I'm going to hold with me as a takeaway yung existential battle. Battle Royale, Battle Supreme. On to 2028. Ano ang iyong final words before we let you go?
Well, Sana wake-up call itong midterm elections na ito na dominated as never before ng dynasties at saka clans. Sana going into 2028, we have more choices, better choices. No? In a way, baka kailangan natin ng isang electoral revolution. A revolution of decency, a revolution of dignity and integrity, a revolution of hope. Or else, baka yung mamanahin nila Diego at saka nila Pauline ay isang impyerno. No?
At ni Alan.
For them and their generation, kailangan may mangyari sa 2028.
And alam namin, boboto pa kayo. So, naitanong ko na yung para sa mga senior citizens. So, I hope maging smooth ang process. As I know that you went, pero medyo nagka-issue nga. Kaya thank you so much, Ronald, for
Salamat.
coming over. But Alan, we're gonna hold you back for another hour and a half, if that's
always
okay.
being held back.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I'd be happy to stay. Thank you.
All right, we'll be back after the break. Just keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Bilang Pilipino 2025 here on One News. And still joining our discussion, political strategist Alan Herman. And now joining him also on the couch is Timothy Tide Hormigos, campaigns officer from Bantay Boto 2025. Nice for you to join us, Tide.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Well, welcome to the show. It was so nice to just be talking before we went to the live again that it's Taig's first national election.
Yes,
Tama ba yan?
yes.
Because the last time was, ayan o,
I
proudly
voted
showing the mark.
last in the last SK election, but that wasn't like a national post. But this is the first time like the automated national positions.
Right, so how did it
Go
go for
youth.
you? Yeah, because
It
you're
was
18 years old
Yes,
and you're in
yes.
first year taking up economics
Yes.
at the University of the Philippines. Diliman.
It was smooth, but the lines were really long. Like I lined up at 7 in the morning, and I managed to get out of the precinct almost 10 o'clock. So it was quite a long line. There were like 3 lines we had to go through. But overall, it was a very smooth process of voting. I shaded everything, and then the receipt reflected what I voted for. So
It's so nice to bring young blood in here because yun nga yung nasabi mo, Pawi, no? Na
Yeah.
yun nga yung majority ng mga
Yes.
botante
I
natin.
resent that, Kathy.
Oh, well, I wasn't referring to you, Alan. Bakit naman naging defensive si Sir Alan?
Nice to bring
He
young
just
Pero-
blood.
has such a youthful glow to him. That's all we're saying.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But you know, the reason why we also brought Taig into the program is because you've done some really hardcore data analysis that goes, well, way back before you even started to vote in 2022. So I'd like for you to show us what you've discovered when it comes to block voting. Simulan natin doon.
yeah, so a lot of my block voting work focuses on the Kakam-Pink block, which emerged in 2022 as a potent political force. But I think one thing I wanted to look deeper is often people on social media say, there's 15 million Kakam-Pinks. Like you hear on Twitter, they're saying, oh, this 15 million should go to the pink candidates this time. But I think that 15 is an overbloated number, and we have to dig deeper to what's the solid pink vote. So my analysis for this would show what really is the solid pink vote. Where is the solid pink vote, and how much is it really of the population? So yes, the pink index shows us the solidity of the pink vote, which we computed about 12% of the national population, about 5 million voters, a lot lower than Leni Robredo's vote share last time. But this block represents the true core of the alternative opposition, the progressive opposition, if you put it like that. This index was computed using senatorial candidates in the last 2022 race and generally matched the results of the more obscure, the lower rank, not as high as Chel Diokno or Risa Contiveros, but it matches the results of Lara de Lima, Sonny Trillanes, etc. So this represents the solid pinks. These are people who will not only vote for the popular ones like Leni or Risa, but they'll also vote for more obscure pink candidates to boost the opposition. So being opposition is their primary political affiliation.
And what else have you found out, though, in the the Lucena to Laguna corridor? Because that's really an interesting portion where you can capture both the command vote and the market vote, Taig.
Yes. I think the often myth when it comes to the opposition bloc is that they're concentrated in Region 5 and in Region 6 and Negros. But what the Pink Index showed is that the opposition has a lot more strength in Metro Manila and the LLC, the Lingayen-Lucena corridor. Yes, if you look at Leni's results, that her strongest was her home region of Bicol. But if you go down the line, example for Senator Hontiveros, her strongest region was Metro Manila. And this is vote-rich, so her being strong there percent-wise and including in raw votes means that this is where the core of the opposition votes are coming from. The reason why the Robredo did well in Bicol was because of regionalism. But not all opposition, not all pink candidates benefit from that regionalism. It's just something that Robredo has being a Bicolana. But if you run a different pink candidate, you're going to have a different coalition. And that's more NCR-centric. And this would hold for the more obscure or the young blood in candidates. Like take, for instance, Lucas Spiritu or Sonny Matula. Their strength is in Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces rather than Bicol. Yes, Bicol is strong, but if we factor in raw vote numbers, Metro Manila and the surrounding regions, the Lingayen-Lucena corridor comes on top.
Well, let's pick up on that and focus in on Cebu, no? Hindi pa natin napapag-usapan. That's
Yeah.
the largest vote-rich
Province,
province. And then when you take a look at it, Alan, when you try to study Visayas as a region, it's another animal.
It's another
It's
animal.
like,
Yeah.
minsan bumoboto sila ng oposisyon, Cebu and Iloilo.
Correct.
Pero minsan naman administration bet. Sa ganitong gawe, sa tingin mo, anong mananalig?
Well, it depends really on who the well-embedded politicians are endorsing. I'm actually curious about the tides, how you classified candidates. I'm very interesting in terms of your methodology and in terms of coming up with an index like this. I'm just curious, like you mentioned Luke Espiritu, would you necessarily paint him with a pink brush? Is he...
I would say so. One thing I looked at is looking at the core. There's something what I call the pink corridor of Metro Manila. This is
Right.
this is the subdivisions. We're talking the peripheries of C5 and EDSA. These are your Alta subdivisions. And putting it lightly. And these areas voted for Robredo with huge margins. These are talking 70, some 80%. NCR's pinkest precinct in Miriam College in Katipunan was 87% Robredo. And Lucas Espiritu made it in. He was a solid fifth, I think, or he was in the Magic 12. In fact, these places didn't even vote for any of the more traditional candidates for the unit team last time. These voted for all alternative candidates. So you could say that these alternative candidates, though they weren't explicitly endorsed by Robredo, were carried away by the pink wave as well.
To Kathy's point, would you, what were your findings about Cebu?
Cebu is quite weak for the opposition last election, but they do have strength in urban Cebu. We're talking Cebu City, Mandaue. That's where their strength is. The rurals are not as strong for the pink opposition in general.
Pero now that you mentioned again Cebu, no, may very key central figure doon.
Yes.
Okay, hindi ko pa
3G,
sinasabing
baby,
pangalan.
3G.
Hindi ko pa sinasabing pangalan, pero
3G.
in hot
Tago na
water,
lang natin
ayun,
sa
si
pangalan, 3G.
Gwen Garcia, yung governor, ano, she's been suspended by the
Suspended
ombudsman
as
3 weeks.
in her capacity as governor, but she is
Yes.
still a viable candidate.
And she also endorsed the full slate.
Yes, of Alianza.
Anong magiging impact though? I mean, ngayon she's in hot water and
Well,
you know, she's also running herself.
Again, this was
for-
the dynamics of this election are unlike anything I've seen before. See, Sec Ronald earlier was talking about what was the word he used? The dissonance.
Yeah.
Did he use the word
Hindi pa rin
dissonance? You know, trying to sound clever as always, diba si Sec Ronald. But really, it's that the surveys seem to be saying one thing, and yet the translation to votes seem to be indicating another thing. For example, majority of Filipinos in surveys will say they're anti-China. They want sovereignty of the Philippines. They're anti-China invasion. Even going as far as terming them as bullies. And yet when they vote for their senators, ayun, number one pa rin yung isang kandidato that is very clearly against that sensibility, no? And some other candidates seem to enter. So it's odd. But circling back, sorry, that was a very meandering way to now I'll circle back to your question. The endorsement power, as mentioned earlier, it's man, message, machinery, and money. In a national election, the machinery will take only about 30% at best. So an actual endorsement from an LGU head will only, at best, account for about 30% of your total votes.
All right, let's go now to Bagong Silang Elementary School in Caloocan.
Ayan,
The third
exciting.
voting center with the highest number of registered voters.
176.
Let's get an update on the situation there from
Ayan.
mobile journalist Jan Francis Rivera, live from Caloocan. Jan, what's the situation there on the ground?
Jericho, andito nga tayo sa Bagong Silang Elementary School, Caloocan, kung saan mayroon itong tinatayang 39,000 registered voters. At kanina, sa pag-iikot-ikot natin dito, may mga ihilang problema na nakita ang mga kaguruan, especially doon sa machine. Ang sinasabi nila, bigla-bigla na lang daw humihinto o kung minsan, kung nadudumihan ang mga balot, yung mga balota, hindi niya nare-read ng maayos. Kaya nangyayari, iluluwa at binibigyan ng panibagong balota ang mga botante. So far, smooth pa rin ang nagiging pila at dagsa pa rin ang dating ng mga tao dito. At wala pa namang natatayang mga casualties gaya ng mga nahimatay or nahilo dahil bumisita tayo doon sa may medic booth natin dito sa Bagong Silang. At ang nakakatuwa dito, may mga volunteers din ang nagbibigay ng mga patubig palibreng tubig sa mga botante na boboto. So, ayun ang update dito sa bagong silang elementary school Caloocan. Balik sa inyo, sir.
Diyan ka-clarify ko lang what you said, no? Yung balot na supposedly hindi tinanggap ng machine, binigyan yung mga botante ng panibagong balot. Initially, because the chairman of COMELEC, si Garcia, said that you only have one ballot per voter. So why were they given a new ballot?
Yes, Diego. Kasi nga hindi siya nare-read. Kaya ang ginagawa daw po ng iba, no, pero isang case lang to na balitaan natin or nakausap natin sa isang bisita dito, binigyan ng isang balot ang isang botante kasi nga hindi na daw talaga ma-read, gawa ng yung ink na kumbaga kumalat doon sa balota. So medyo sensitive din daw ang naging ang mga machine natin ngayon. Kaya ang ginawa bilang resulta o bilang resolution doon, binigyan na sila ng panibagong balot.
Well, God, you brought that up because we'll take that on later with hopefully with the chairman, George Garcia. Kasi one ballot per voter, di ba, Alan? One ballot per voter.
That is the very definition of flying voters.
Yeah,
More than
so
one
to have an
ballot.
extra ballot. So I'd like to ask, Jan, ano pa ba magiging nakikita mong issues dyan sa where you are right now in terms of yung machines? May mga aberya na ba? Aside from what you mentioned,
Dagdag ko lang din dyan kasi kaninang umaga nagkaroon daw ng mga ilang delays dahil sa malakas na ulan.
Yes,
So right now, napabilis na ba yung proseso ng pagboto dyan sa Caloocan?
Yes. Yes po. Back to regular programming ika nga tayo dito sa Caloocan. At matapos nga yung panandaliang pagulan, bumalik din sa normal ang daloy ng pila. At ganun din, may mga problema din tayo nakita at na-raise din sa atin, katulad na lang ng mga presintong nawala. Ito yung main issue, may isa pong presinto dito, may ibang ng kaliwa ko po, ay nawala daw po. At isa din po sa mga problema ay yung mga ibang hindi nakaboto dahil nawala sa listahan or wala sa listahan ang kanilang pangalan.
And Jan, can you help paint a picture sa political climate dyan sa Caloocan, no? Dahil sa mayoral race, ang naglalabanan ay si Along Malapitan, which we know, balwarte naman talaga ng mga malapitan ang syudad na yan, versus former Senator Antonio Trillanes. So, gaano ba katindi yung labanan nila?
Kanina, pinuntahan natin si San Bumoto, si incumbent mayor Along Malapitan rather, sa Morning Breeze Elementary School kaninang 10 a.m. Kanina din, nabutan natin si dating Senador Antonio Trillanes. Medyo mainit ang race dito, no? Hati, kung papakinggan ko yung iba't ibang sentimento ng mga botante, magiging hati ang boto nila or hati ang sentimento nila at opinion nila sa mga nangyayari dito sa Caloocan.
Alright, thank you for that, Jan. That's Jan Francis Rivera live from Caloocan.
Yan yung labanang tinitingnan ko kasi dinastiya di ba?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most the Malapitan family.
Yung Malapitan, mga 10 taon na yan. I mean, from father to son. Gusto kong tanongin ngayon si Alan. Yun nga, yung pagkakatanong ni Pao, what are the chances? Kasi nga, Trillanes made his name already. And yun nga, maingay siya. Laging pinupuntirya niya ang mga nakatataas, yung former President GMA, Gloria Arroyo, tapos si Duterte, and then...
Pati si former Vice President Lenny Robredo.
So yun nga, nilalahat niya. So, may chance ba?
Well, again, talking about political dynamics in terms of saan mo makukuha yung boto mo. Sa local elections, not counting highly urbanized cities or yung tinatawag nating HUC, the split is 60% is machinery, 40% retail. So, with that as a backdrop, isipin na lang natin, ano ba yung naging retail play ni Sentry, ni Antonio Trillanes? The fighter, the soldier, anti-Duterte, that was yung main messaging niya, di ba? Ngayon, kailangan nating isipin, effective ba yung messaging na yan sa Caloocan? Tingnan natin ngayon yung voting history ng Caloocan if that is a traditionally Duterte supporting region or place, no? So dyan pa lang sa retail. And of course, on the machinery side, mahirap talunin ng makinarya. Ako, personally, ang wish ko lang, sa susunod, malapitan ang table at ang couch natin, di ba? Para hindi tayo, para magkakarinigan tayo, yan, malapitan. Yan ang gusto ko malapitan, yung
Wala
table.
pa namang kandidatong malayuan.
I'd like to ask, you mentioned about, of course, ano yung play nila, how are they campaigning? But see, when you ask people, they're not quite happy with how Caloocan is in state niya right now. But
there is dissent.
There is dissent.
Yes, there is.
Having said that, when you ask or talk to people on the ground, they will tell you, well, ayaw rin namin kay Trillanes because anong gagawin niya doon? Kakahul lang daw siya.
Paklang.
So, how do you reconcile this?
Well, there's, how do I say this without trying to sound clever and spitting out technical terms? May tinatawag tayong change partiality. On the local level, around 11 to 12% measured of Filipinos will actually vote for the person who is not incumbent just for the sake of change. Change partiality. Pinoys are like that, di ba? Iba naman, kahit sa shampoo, kahit sa sabon. Di ba? Iba naman, susubukan ko. Subok lang. But those are soft votes. Those are very soft votes. At the end of the day, in local elections, especially in places like Caloocan, yan, yung mga outskirts of Manila, barangay captain talaga ang key figure dyan. Sino bang sinabi ni barangay captain na iboboto natin? And we know who holds the machinery in Caloocan. Not making any predictions, of course.
Taig, before we let you go, may isa pa tayong datos na gustong tumbukin, yung fill-up rates. Kasi napakalaki niyan. Kung isipin natin, we're talking about Metro Manila, and also the fill-up rates in the Lingayen to Lucena corridor. Ano yung impact nun? Ano yung nakita mo sa yung data analysis?
So fill up, what I've noticed is it's quite high in Metro Manila and the outskirts of LLC. If I'm not mistaken, it's around 10, which is quite above the national average. National average
Which is
like
about 7 to 8%.
7 to 8. But in Metro Manila, it's 10. It's the highest in the country that's not overseas. Overseas is 11. So I think it gives it greater impact in elections. But because one, voters complete, so the candidates have more chances to get into the ballots of people. They consider to fill up more. But second, I also think that it gives an opportunity for more, well, since it's a completely market vote, it gives an opportunity for more, lesser known candidates to be considered because people want to fill up their ticket. And which I think shows in the results in the past that even lesser known candidates do get decent results in Metro Manila. Like Lucas Espiritu, as we said earlier, got 15%, which is solid numbers considering his campaign really took off when he entered the debates. So I think the high fill-up rates give some hope for more alternative candidates, for other kinds of candidates to get into the minds of Metro Manila and the greater part of the LLC, since it's completely market and people want to try to complete their ballot there.
All right. Well, thank you, Tide, for helping us break down the numbers. But right here, as you see on your screens, you've got Senator Amy Marcos now going in to cast her ballot. There we go. Senator Amy Marcos there. Of course, she's had an interesting campaign for this particular midterm elections. She started out as a candidate under the Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas under the administration, an administration slate of President Bongbong Marcos. But a lot of people were saying, right, Kathy and Diego, that itong si Senator Amy, yung namamangka sa dalawang ilog.
Ayun nga.
And that was a lot the criticism. Particularly with Senator Amy, because she was the architect of the unit team, so-called unit team, back in 2022. So
that's why it was so interesting to actually read just before I came on board that she defended her close friendship with VP Sara. So that's how it's turning out, while she reaffirmed support for her brother. So blood thicker than water. I mean, talagang telenovela.
It's
that
quite
you can't see anywhere else that this is happening.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, amid all the skepticism that we're seeing from the Duterte supporters and the loyalists.
But if you talk to
questioning the loyalty of the
a lot of you mentioned Duterte supporters, if you talk to them, although Senator Amy is endorsed by VP Sara, they quite don't trust her yet to be part of the Duterte slate because they said she's still the sister of the president.
I mean, her last name is still Marcos, right? But she did come out with a video just a few days before Election Day, right? She was saying she is a Marcos, and she did throw some shots at the administration. And she was talking about in that particular campaign, right, na I'm me, which was quite
But you have to remember
interesting.
kasi it's parang culture din ng Filipino, kahit nag-aaway ang magkapatid, it's not quite as bitter as this. So parang for some of us, we're thinking, is this optics? Parang, is this real? Is this really happening? That's why.
But it's not the only family feud in town.
Yes,
We've got
definitely.
the Be Nice, number one.
That's something else.
Yeah, that's something
That's
else as
something
well.
else. Yeah.
And it's worth watching.
You've got the
That's correct, the
Villiers.
Cayetanos
Tano.
as well. But you know, if institutional memory will count, you know, she said that their friendship ng mga Marcoses dates back to the time when Duterte was still the mayor of Davao City.
So we're also going to see if the Solid North will be delivering for Senator Amy Marcos. After all, she's now being endorsed by the Duterte camp. She was also included as a last-minute guest candidate for PDP Laban.
Yeah.
So very, very
Pero alam
interesting
ko,
here. But based
kung
on
may Solid
surveys also.
North nga, makakatulong ba yan ng malaki para dun sa Magic 12? Sa tingin mo, is it going to be a big jump or just enough to kind of like,
But
you
Ako
know,
sasagutin ko yan.
Before you go there muna,
Yan.
we have somebody on the line. We have Elaine Fulencio
Oo,
on the
si
line.
Elaine. Si
go
Elaine.
ahead.
Excited ako sa sasabihin ni Elaine.
Hi, Elaine.
Elaine, go
Saan siya
ahead.
ngayon? Saan siya?
I have no clue.
Hi, Elaine. Can you hear us? Okay, so we're trying to get Elaine on the line.
Baka si Senator Amy magsalita.
Yeah, we have technical difficulties also with Brillo a while ago. So I think we'll go back to Elaine
that,
in a
that
while.
actually
I
took
really
very
find Amy
fast.
Marcos is
I mean, she was
so
just seated when we took her live
really.
shot, and then now she's putting it into the machine.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad.
Okay, so Senator Amy Marcos here casting her ballot just 4 minutes after 1 in the afternoon as we see her here
There.
placing her ballot inside the ACM.
I really would have thought that maybe people would, you know, let lunch pass and maybe the high heat, but hey, may mga bumoboto.
Maybe that was her plan.
May mga
Oo.
kandidato rin.
Oh,
sila.
kasi pag lunchtime, everybody's eating so she gets to the line faster. di ba?
That's true. That's true.
So, I'd like to talk about the campaign of Senator Amy. No?
Here we go.
It's been a long, the messaging has been long drawn out from the start. Very subtly against her brother from the start. It started to get bitter and then now it's really talaga.
Direct hit.
A direct
Hindi
hit
Marcos.
already.
Hindi Marcos.
This last commercial, ano ang magiging impact ito for her from the northern votes?
Well, actually, I think, are we talking about the same commercial? Hindi Marcos ang
Yes.
nagpapatakbo ng gobyerno.
Yes.
I honestly believe, I might be in the minority. I'm reading it as she's distancing herself from hitting her brother. Parang binabanatan ko yung administrasyon. I'm against the way the administration is running things. But that's not my brother. It's, in fact, she named it. It's the Romualdeses
Araneta.
and the Aranetas. So I think that was a last-ditch effort, as you said, not to your point, Diego, to try to woo or try to salve the wounds of those that she may have inadvertently, backslapped from the north, who are diehard loyalists, and suddenly they see a senator whose name is Marcos spewing out all this vitriol against the president. So siguro this was a last-ditch. Hindi naman yung kapatid ko kalaban ko.
Pero alam kasi the North has been a loyal voting bloc for the longest time.
A solid one, yeah.
Because most of them stem from the late Senator Marcos, president.
Former president, yeah.
So where
Senior
will
pa yan.
saan sila papanig? Sa president or sa senator? Who carries the Marcos senior brand?
Okay, and I hate using this term, but somehow I'm always cornered into saying the term. But ang nangyari kasi kay Senator Amy, she became the dirt magnet. Naging dirt magnet si Senator Amy. Lahat ng galit sa administrasyon, damay siya. Marcos pa rin siya. But then, all of the anti-Dutertes, damay pa rin siya.
Yeah.
Because she's supporting the ano. So dirt magnet, she just sucked in all of the negative vibes from both camps. So to answer your question, who is carrying the Marcos baton, who is carrying the Marcos legacy? Senator Amy is clearly trying to grasp it. In her interviews, she says, this is not the legacy of my father, nangyari din yan sa ama ko. But at the end of the day, presidente pa rin si Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
But Alan, okay. All right, before we go back to our discussion,
interview
here's
muna.
senatorial candidate Amy Marcos, who just cast her ballot. She was with her son, also Matthew Manotoc, who is running, no, also for governor of Ilocos Norte. We'll also be trying to get News 5 correspondent Elaine Polhencio. Is she now? Will she be joining us?
U-turn lang ako,
Okay,
pabalik
so
na
let's
naman
listen
ako
in.
kasi nagmo-monitor. Ako yung chairman ng Electoral Reform, maliban pa sa sangkatutak kong mga trabaho. Ang problema, pagka dami-daming problema at reklamo, no? Kaninang umaga pa, natatanggap ko mula sa iba't ibang lugar ang reklamo tungkol sa allegedly programmed machines na kahit sino ang iboto mo ang lumalabas abalos, na minsan hindi nagre-rehistro ng sino mang senador. Yung iba naman, bumoto ng 100 pero overvote na ang sinasabi. Tapos sa Calbayog, sa Samar, may sinasabi naman na pag bumoto ka ng mayor at vice mayor, automatic lalabas yung mga senador. Kaya medyo nakakatakot kasi ganyan yung storya. At ang balita sa Davao, pagkadami-daming mga machines na hindi umaandar. Kaya eto nga, nananawagan po ako sa BEI. Maganda naman pagboto ko dito, very perfect naman dito sa Cabeza Lawag. Kaya lang, nananawagan ako sa mga botante pa itong hapon na ito na hanggang alas 7 kasi tayo, di ba? Very late tayo ngayon. Kung ganon, pwede ba i-check ninyo ng maigi lahat ng gagawin, tignan ninyo ng maayos yung resibo ninyo, maging makulit kayo at mapansin. At kinakailangan kung may reklamo, alam ko na bawal ilabas yung cellphone mo at kukunan mo, bawal yon, magagalit yung ating BEI. Pero kung magre-reklamo ka, may proseso. Sundan lang yung proseso, sabihin mo, may reklamo ka, may disparity, pagkatapos papipirmahan ka. Kaya kinakailangan nandito sa atin yan. As we all know, it's the very first time that we have a new technology provider. Hindi na Smartmatic, yung hinihinalang Smart Magic dati. Ngayon, first time natin gagamitin yung Miru. Kaya hindi natin masyadong kabisado, mas modern daw to. Pero sa kabila nun, mas sensitive rin daw. Kaya alamin natin at manmanin natin maigi kasi ang boto natin ay isang karapatan na binigay ng ating salinlahi. Naku, nakakapagod na yung investigasyon. Hindi na ako nakapagkampanya sa kakaimbestiga. Tignan natin lahat ng reklamo. Kaya lang, ang daming complaint na walang detalye. Kung maaari, bigay ninyo sa akin yung presinto at kahit wala pang investigasyon na talagang papakalkal na natin, ano yung precinct number, pangalan ng BEI chair, ang pangalan ninyo at ano talaga ang nangyari eksakto para maliwanag at magawa ng paraan na tignan yung presintong yun kaagad-agad at kung kailangan i-repair, i-pull out yung machine, gawin na rin. Okay, salamat. Thank you. Bakit ang dami-dami nyo?
There you go.
Very sharp already.
Senator Amy
Senator
Marcos, I
Amy.
didn't expect that she would lay on all the complaints there, but she did cite that she was the chair of the Electoral
Yes.
Reform. So she played two roles there. She was three roles, a candidate, a voter, and the chair of the Electoral Reform. But we do have to ask COMELEC Chair George Garcia
about these
to
issues.
verify yung mga nasabi niya na doon sa Davao, napakaraming machines not working. And then yung phrase na ginamit niya, allegedly, programmed machines.
Yeah, when the votes for mayor came out as for senator, with specifically Abalos, the name of Abalos. And also yung issue of multiple ballots being given to a single voter. So, ang dami. So, go ahead, Pauline.
Yeah. So that was Senator Amy Marcos speaking to the media. But for now, we're just going to take a quick break. This is Bilang Pilipino 2025. Keep it here on One News.
1:15 p.m. Philippine Standard Time. Welcome back to our coverage of Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Kathy Yang.
Join us in the next few minutes as we bring you the news and views you can use when you place your votes today. I'm Jago Castro.
And we have the big story on the ground from the full force of Media Quest's news teams, our reporters and stringers strategically placed nationwide. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Now, Quezon City remains the most vote-rich city in the country with some 1.4 million registered voters. And now let's get an update on the situation there on the ground. Reporting live is mobile journalist Isa Abelio. Hi, Isa. How are the polls going there so far?
Hi, good afternoon, Pauline. We are currently here in Christ the King Mission Seminary in Quezon City, where re-electionist Mayor Joy Belmonte cast her vote earlier today. When we asked her about what her experience is like, casting her vote for the last time as a mayoral candidate, she said it was a bittersweet experience. But she also commended how smooth the operations are here in this particular precinct. And she also encourages citizens to use the long weekend to go out and do our duty as Filipino citizens and to go out and vote. Should she win, this will actually be her third and final term as Quezon City Mayor. And she is not running unopposed. There are 4 independent candidates that are also vying for the mayoral seat. Earlier today, re-electionist Quezon City District 1 Representative Arjo Atayde cast his vote in UST Angelicum College Gymnasium together with his cousin and councilor aspirant Gab Atayde. During his campaign experience, he said that it felt more familiar this time around, and he was also thankful for the support of the constituents of QC District 1. When asked about the fact that he is going up against a seasoned politician, Bingbong Crisologo, he said that there were a lot of personal attacks, but he's hopeful that good governance will rise above these. As mentioned, he is going up against Crisologo, who has a political career spanning over 2 decades, and this will be his attempt at a political comeback. So this Atayde versus Crisologo is actually like one of the most competitive congressional races in the city, with an incumbent going up against a seasoned politician. Recall that Atayde actually won against the son of Bingbong Crisologo, Onyx Crisologo, in the last 2022 congressional race. And over in UST Angelicum College earlier, there were actually 4 machines that had some problems with feeding and reading. But there are DESO technical support that was able to clean the machine, and then they fed the ballots again, and then everything went smoothly after that. So they were able to resolve the problems right away, and everything started going smoothly after that. Thank you.
Well, Isa, what about incidents of vote buying? Have you monitored any incidents so far there in Quezon City?
I went to a UST and here over in Christ the King. So far, nothing of that sort, because things actually are pretty smooth here. Apart from the incident earlier in UST Angelicum, the machines are actually they're working pretty fine, yes.
All right, well, thank you very much for that update. That was mobile journalist Isa Abelio reporting live from Quezon City.
Let's now head to the capital city of Manila, where a 3-way heated mayoral battle surges. With us live is mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. Denise, what's the update there? Denise? All right, I think
pa yung napaka-interesting.
yeah,
Hindi
you
ba
have Isko Moreno, and you
Una-una.
have Hani Lacuna, and you have Sam Versosa. Oh.
Ano yung kanyang tagline? Make
Manila
great again.
See, we're wearing the outfits. Yeah.
Parang
Kaya ba nag-usap
umaga-
kayo?
Parang umaga movement.
Very maga. Pero yung kay Mayor Hani Lacuna, the incumbent, medyo mas may hugot. Tapat at totoo. Perhaps evoking the fact that Isko Moreno seems to be using Manila as a lily pad for national positions. At least I think that's the thinking behind that.
So where does Sam Versosa now come into play?
Sam Versosa actually, he was glitz, glamour. He brought in a lot of showbiz personalities because of his line of work. He was seen as that young guy. Some people say he's good looking and But I think the main problem, what happened with Sam Versosa branding-wise, is he became an analog of Isko.
Yeah.
You can't out-Isko Isko. Or at least it's hard. It's hard to out-Isko Isko. If you're already looking at the same basic brand vibe, baka magkaroon ng cannibalism doon, baka si Mayor Honey pa yung makinabang.
Let's bring in Ed Buntayao joining us, political analyst. Thank you so much, Ed, for
Thank you
joining
for
us.
having me.
And in the conversation that we're having, the vote-rich provinces, we're now in tumalon tayo mula Quezon City hanggang Manila.
Yeah.
Napag-usapan mo nga yung yung labanan ni Lacuna at saka ni Isko. But let's put in social media as a way of campaigning. How much of a factor had that been? Because very active si Isko, but Honey, not as active according to some political observers.
Actually, hindi naman sa excuse me, hindi naman sa social media lang hindi active si Mayor Honey, no? Siguro pag tinignan mo yung stereotype politiko who goes out of his way to get people know that he or she is running for office, she's typically not that kind of a person, no? Hindi masalita eh. Which is also something of a weakness, really, no? So kahit pa sabihin natin na totoo yung tagline na tapat at totoo, kung hindi mo nako-communicate yun, wala rin, no? Kasi I'm a Manila voter. I just voted, no? That's why I said
Maayos ba? Mabilis?
Yeah. Actually, it's good that you ask kung maayos, ano? Kasi dapat talaga imbestigahan yung mga reklamo na merong mga ganyang mga problema o anomalya. Kasi matagal pa yung halalan. Sinasabi na nila merong magiging dayaan eh. Ito yung halalan naman dito sa atin, may dayaan. No? Pero sa lahat ng kaso na lumabas at nasubaybayan ko, kahit yung mga umabot ng Supreme Court, ng mataas na hukom, no? Wala naman nakikitang ganon, ano? So, in fact, the Supreme Court, in many of its decisions, even introduced a number of reforms, no? And we're actually seeing it now in the new system that is in place, no? But at hindi naman natin masasabi na wala talagang nangyayaring hindi maganda, so dapat talagang imbestigahan. Kaya lang ang nangyayari kasi, Cathy, malayo pa yung halalan, kine-question na natin, parang sinasabi, huwag niyong pagtiwalaan yung halalan na yan. In fact, even before, there were already pronouncements that might as well forego with the elections, no? So, masyadong hyped itong election na to.
We can't forgo this election. I mean, the political observers say it is the most consequential and most turbulent.
Well, all
Going
elections
into
are
the
consequential, really,
2028
no? But
presidential election.
if there's any reason why anyone would say it's consequential, it's because napakaingay eh. It's the first time that I'll actually see, a midterm election na ganito kaingay. Grabe ang propaganda, ang daming fake news. And if you look at the fake news, hindi naman sa Pilipinas nanggagaling lahat yan, no? It's very easy to trace saan ito nanggagaling, no? And people should understand that supposedly the Philippines is not Britain, it's not Ukraine, it's not many other countries which experience cyber attacks and attacks of disinformation, no? What happened to Brexit, what happened to the first election of Trump before, talagang these are all documented na talagang may outside interference in the form of mal and misinformation. Pero ngayon nangyayari sa atin, no? So, let's see how the voters actually will
Sabi nga nila yung
vote.
labanan AI versus AI. The bad AI versus the good AI. And we can't tell
Dark
which.
side, good side of the force. Nga, di ba?
Exactly.
Sabi ni Secretary Llamas. Kasi the social media really, I mean, we saw it in 2016. That was the game changer. It's the cheapest, most pervasive way to do it in terms of cost. Before we had to, candidates had to rely on mass media, above-the-line media, print, television, radio. But now, the resources you would spend on above-the-line media, if you spend the same on social media, the footprint is far larger, number one. And two, there's a two-way exchange. Di ba? Hindi lang one media is cascading to consumer. Ito, nag-uusap sila. So, pwedeng sa comments, mag-upakan.
Kumbaga instant feedback.
Instant feedback and engagement.
Pero for national candidates, dapat matandaan nila, no? Na ang social media limited pa din sa highly urbanized areas.
At mababa ang conversion.
This has been proven by media metrics, no? In fact, pag pumunta ka sa rural areas, 80 to 90% radyo pa din yan eh.
Yes.
No? So that explains why in Manila, in Quezon City, doon mo makikita yung social media activities, no? Kasi highly urbanized yan. Pero national, all the more, talagang you will resort to social media kasi sabi nga nila, mas cost-effective. Pero in terms of what's this penetration, ayun nga, conversion and everything, iba pa din yung bababa ka talaga and you will use all kinds of media.
Well, okay, we're gonna circle back to that conversation, gentlemen, but for now, let's check in back in Manila with mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. Hi, Denise, what can you tell us?
Hi, Pauline. Good afternoon, rather. 2 out of 3 of our pinag-uusapan yung candidates for mayoral race in Manila City have already casted their votes here in the Garda Elementary School in Sampaloc, Manila. That is Sam Berzosa and incumbent Mayor Honey Lacuna. Mas nauna nga kanina, no, si Honey Lacuna na nakaboto dito sa Legarda around 9:30 a.m. And syempre dun sa panayam namin with current Mayor Honey Lacuna and electionist Honey Lacuna, sabi niya, syempre, para daw sa mga tapat na boboto sa kanya, hindi niya raw papabayaan ang mga Manileño at Manilenya. And then right after, about an hour after, no, sumunod dyan si businessman and mayoral vet Sam Berzosa alongside his partner Rian Ramos and his family supporting him by his side. At ito naman, medyo mahaba yung naging diskusyon, no? Pero one thing's for sure, sabi ni Sam Berzosa, sa lahat ng binigay niya, mas magbibigay pa raw siya sa mga Manileño. That's tenfold that he will give if the Manileños give their trust to him as the new Manila mayor. And syempre, bago naman daw, bagong pag-asa, bagong Manila. With regards to the voters right here, so far everything's smooth sailing, aside from some errors when it comes to machines. For example, masyadong basa or wet yung mga ink na nagagamit, medyo nagkaka-error, nagkaka-malfunction. But the thing here is merong mga naka-antabay agad, no, na technicians. So agad-agad naman daw na solusyonan. Aside from that, syempre the heat is one of the major problems right here dahil hindi nga lang siya basta mainit, it's very humid, lalo na dito sa area natin for the priority polling place dahil mainit talaga compared dito sa mga precincts natin inside the buildings. Wala pa namang kaso ng nahihimatay so far and merong mga first aid watchers na nakaantabay dito.
All right, well, we will be watching that mayoral race quite closely. But for now, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho reporting live from Manila. You're watching Bilang Pilipino 2025. We'll be right back after these messages. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You're watching Bilang Pilipino 2025 here on One News. Again, we were talking about it. 68.4 million voters in this midterm elections, and vote-rich provinces are among the main destinations of candidates when campaigning. So ano-ano nga ba yung vote-rich provinces? Alam nating lahat yan, doon pabalik-balik ang ating mga kandidato. We head on over to Cebu. Cebu will give you 3.4 million voters. Actually, Cebu is the only province that hit that 3 million mark. So talagang makikita natin some candidates, dun sila magja-jumpstart ng campaign, at yung iba naman, dun sila mag-end para humabol pa ulit na makakuha dong last-minute votes. After Cebu, you have 5 more provinces that hit the 2 million mark. Unahin natin ang Cavite. Cavite naman will give you 44 million votes. Actually, it's also noteworthy pala to mention, guys, na it doesn't mean na dahil may 3.4 million votes sa Cebu, 3.4 din yung boboto. We have numbers back in 2022, 3.2 million ang registered voters from Cebu, but only 86.7% ang actually who went out to cast their votes. That's only 2.8 million. So the same is with Cebu, who has 2.4 million registered voters. Aasahan natin na sana nga lahat ay lumabas and exercise their rights. After Cavite, you have Bulacan, who has 2.1 million registered voters back in 2022. Again, only 87.5% ang lumabas para bumoto. Pangasinan ang susunod with 2.1 or 2.15 million voters. Laguna, again, has 2.14 million voters. Negros Occidental, pinakamataas, well, next to Cebu from Visayas, that has 2 million voters. So again, 3.4 million para sa Cebu. You have 5 provinces, that's Cavite, Bulacan, Pangasinan, Laguna, and Negros Occidental. The next few provinces hitting that 2 million mark. Ang pinakamataas na nakikita nating sumunod is actually a province in Mindanao, or the province in Mindanao that has the highest number of voters, and they account for 1.47 million votes. Ayan. Pero daanan na rin natin, top 20 vote-rich provinces. You have Cebu, Cavite, Bulacan, na-mention na natin kanina. Negros Occidental, Batangas, 1.95 million votes. Pampanga has 1.6. Ang Rizal naman has 1.6 as well. Ang Iloilo, merong 1.64. Nueva Ecija has 1.62 million votes. Quezon has 1.49 million votes. Davao del Sur has 1.47. Leyte, magbibigay din ng 1.4 million votes. Camarines Sur with 1.34 million. Zamboanga del Sur with 1.19 million. Isabela has 1.12 million votes. Misamis Oriental, 1.1 million votes. South Cotabato will give you close to 1,997,000, and rounding out the top 20 is Bukidnon with 995 million votes. But again, kanina dinaanan natin, most of the vote-rich provinces nandoon sa loob ng L2L corridor. We have to take note also, mas malaki pa ang population ng Calabarzon compared to NCR and anywhere else. So you would think na yun yung pinaka-densely populated province or area in the Philippines.
Pero yun nga, yung sabi mo, vote-rich is one, but who goes out to vote is another. Kaya sana
Voter turnout.
our voter turnout turns out.
back in
86%, like you said, that was really high.
For
But
Cebu.
then- for Cebu.
But nationally though, back in
national,
2016, we only got 81% voter turnout rather, 81.62 to be exact. Noong 2019, nagkaroon tayo ng 75.9%. 2022 is 84%. So, nakikita natin historically, mas mataas ang voter turnout kapag bumoboto tayo ng presidente, vice-presidente. And so, what we would want to happen now in 2025 is sana tumaas ulit. Diba? Kahit hindi tayo pumipili ng ganong klaseng posisyon.
Yeah, because I was just looking at stats around ASEAN. Indonesia did 81%, so we're not that far out, 75, 76, but the hope is really north of 80. Kasi nga, ang taas nung,
But I mean, there are several factors
dun
that
sa mga
come into
vote-rich
play.
provinces.
Do they still have faith in the system? Yung iba, as simple as naiinitan. Diba? The weather is a big factor. So, let's see how it turns out.
All right, well, thanks, Denise, for presenting that data to us. But speaking of vote-rich provinces, let's get the situation now in Cebu.
the province with the most number of voters. Gwen Garcia has already voted. Joining us to report on that is News 5 correspondent John Aroa. Hi, John. What's the situation on the ground there right now?
Kathy, Pauline at Jago, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. At narito tayo ngayon sa Guadalupe Elementary School sa pinakamalaking barangay at may pinakamalaking voting population dito sa syudad ng Cebu. At sa mga oras na ito ay nakatanggap tayo ng report na nakaboto na si Cebu City Mayor Raymond Alvin Garcia dito sa barangay Camputhaw. At habang si incumbent Governor Gwen Garcia naman ay boboto naman sa bayan ng Barili sa kanyang hometown. At nakaboto na si Cebu City Raymond Alvin Garcia dito sa Camputhaw Elementary School dito sa Cebu City pasado alas 12 ng tanghali kanina. Habang si incumbent Governor Gwen Garcia ay sa Barili, Cebu. Nauna na ding boboto si ang katunggali ni Garcia sa pagkagobernador sa probinsya ng Cebu na si Pam Baricuatro. Nakaboto na rin si Baricuatro sa Pinamungahan Central School sa bayan ng Pinamungahan sa probinsya ng Cebu kaninang umaga. Habang si dating Cebu City Mayor Michael Rama naman sa Guadalupe Elementary School bumoto. Kasama niya ang kanyang asawa at anak. Nadismaya naman si Rama matapos umabot ng halos 1 oras ang kanyang pagboto. Pumalya kasi ang automated counting machine na siya ang nasana ang susunod sa pila. Hindi binasa ang balota ni Rama matapos magka-paper jam. Sinubukan itong ayusin ng COMELEC ngunit habang kinukumpuni ito ng technician ng COMELEC, nahulog ang kanyang cellphone, itong technician, sa loob ng ACM. Ginamit kasi nito ang cellphone bilang flashlight. Ang ginawa ng nasabing personnel, dinismantle niya ang ACM para kunin ang nahulog ng cellphone sa loob ng ACM. Kaya umalma dito ang kampo ni Rama. Sabi nila, hindi na pwedeng isali sa bilang ang mga boto mula sa nasabing ACM dahil parang tinampered na rin ang makina. Maaring makaapekto daw sa resulta mula sa nasabing ACM ang ginawa ng technician ng COMELEC. Sinubukan pa nating kunan ng panig ang COMELEC hinggil dyan. Samantala may naispatan rin tayo dito ng mga foreigner, na mga observer ngayong Bilang Pilipino 2025. Meron din tayong nakita mga persons deprived of liberty na boboto dito sa Guadalupe Elementary School. At inescortan siya ng mga jail officer. Binigyan raw ito ng court order ng korte para makaboto ngayong Bilang Pilipino 2025. Samantala, Kathy, Jago at Pauline, at kararating lang ng impormasyon sa atin na kaboboto lang ni Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia sa bayan ng Barili dito sa Lamak Elementary School sa Barangay Mayana sa Barili sa probinsya ng Cebu. Pasado 1:00 ng hapon siya nakaboto si Governor Gwen Garcia.
Alright, maraming salamat para sa report na yan. That was News 5 correspondent John Aroa reporting live from Cebu.
Medyo natawa ako doon sa nahulog na cellphone. Ako, baka...
Ginamit pang flashlight para since nahulog. Lumala yung problem.
Resourceful si election watcher. Pero pwede pala mangyari yun.
Nangyari daw yan, nahulog yung cellphone ng technician. Yung mga contact niya, nalagay sa balota.
Yun ang binoto.
Issue na naman yan.
Nag-transmit.
Only in the Philippines. Pero it was quite a refreshing
interesting story.
But adding insult to injury, it had to happen pa to Sir Rama. So, had to wait for an hour.
Anyway, let's go on to this. Several public officials and senatorial candidates have already cast their votes. President Bongbong Marcos, former First Lady Imelda Marcos, and Representative Sandro Marcos voted together in Batac City, Ilocos Norte. Vice President Sara Duterte, meanwhile, voted in her family's bailiwick, Davao City. Senator Lito Lapid was among the first to vote at Porac Elementary School in Pampanga. Former Senator Gringo Honasan voted early in Marikina City. Former Senator Ping Lacson voted in Imus, Cavite. In Bacoor, Cavite, former Senator Bong Revilla and his wife, Representative Lani Mercado, voted at the Perpetual Village 5 Covered Court. Senator Cynthia Villar and former Senator Manny Villar were also spotted at Las Piñas High School casting their ballots. MVP Group Chairman Manny V. Pangilinan shared that he voted as early as 5:10 in the morning.
Paalala lang, ang mga senior citizens
Should
and
avail of that.
persons with
Yeah.
disabilities were given that opportunity from 5 to 7 a.m. Pero yun nga, kanina nakausap din natin ang ating reporter na si Marymon said, pwede pa naman.
Yeah.
Gusto humabol.
It's
just
Pero
that-
siguro,
7 p.m.
The
Oo,
5 to 7 window is for a smaller crowd, so hindi sila masyadong stressed. But
That's true.
if they can't make it to the 5 to 7, they can still continue until
right,
7
and up to
p.m.
7 p.m.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's go back to our discussion. Our political strategists, Alan Herman, still with us, and political analyst Edmund Tayaw. We're talking about voting blocks and now the vote-rich provinces, pero really dependent on voter turnout. Paano nyo hinihimok na bumoto? Ang daming rason kung bakit hindi. Pero bakit dapat?
Bakit?
Bakit dapat bumoto?
Paano
Edmund?
hihimukin ang mga botante?
Well, unang-una, hindi naman totoo na, if many voters follow yung tinatawag na mga surveys, no? But to be honest, since 2013, hindi naman, actually 2004, even before the advent of automated elections, ang exit poll has not been really that accurate, no? Hindi na siya ganon ka-precise. Classic example yung in 2004, yung exit poll, supposedly NCR nanalo si former President GMA. But as it turns out, the actual result, talo siya sa NCR. Actually, you can still search this, and nandun pa naman yung mga news reports. Sabi ko, hindi ko alam kung anong nangyaring magic. Alam naman natin na may magic na nangyari noong 2004. Pero sabi ko, kung mag-iimbento lang naman ng number, bakit NCR pa? Traditionally, kwan talaga yan, no? Opposition country yan. No? Walang nananalong administration palagi sa NCR. Now, 2013, lahat ng exit poll ang sinasabi between number 8 and 12, si Senator Grace Poe. No? Ang layo no, 8 and 12. Pero yung actual result, ng number 1 siya. No? So, sa madalit sabi, hindi totoo yung sinasabi na yung boto mo would not matter kasi isa lang yan. Kasi you will never know how many voters who will be thinking in the same way that you are thinking. No? Pangalawa, if you're talking of senatorial vote, in electoral system parlance, it's a multi-member district. So you're not only voting for one, you're voting for several candidates. Hindi naman yan boboto ng 12. Ako 5 lang binoto ko eh. Kasi in fact, whenever I'm consulted, sinasabi ko, bakit mo iboboto yung hindi mo naman talaga gustong iboto? Bakit mo iboboto yung sinabi ng kaibigan mo, nanay, tatay mo, o kung sino man? Kailangan mo talagang isa-isahin. No? I mean, I've always been saying, if you look at the kind of Senate that we have now, parang hahanapin mo yung Senado na meron kang Juvito Salonga, meron kang Raul Manglapos, meron kang Miriam Defensor Santiago, no? Ngayon makikita mo na lang lalo na sa mga reels and everything, parang katatawanan na lang yung nangyayari, no? And I'm sorry, no, but you have candidates that when you ask about issues, actually hindi lang kokonti, halos lahat sila. May narinig ba kayong kandidato nagsabi na ang ipupush niya is about climate change, about water security, environment? No, puro ayuda. Bibigyan ng allowance yung estudyante, bibigyan ng pagkain, dadagdagan yung ayuda, and so on and so. I have no idea really where we're going to, no? But at the end of the day, it's really the voters that has the power to choose.
But,
Go ahead.
To your point, and you make a very good point about the issues. I mean, I speak with investors and business folks, being a finance journalist, at ang talagang gusto lang nila makita is continuity and security na magpatuloy yung mga magagandang polisiya na nakaluklok na. But what assurance do we have na yun ang pwedeng mangyari sa magiging komposisyon nitong bagong Senado? Because if you come to look at the obstacles that we face, the impeachment trial of VP Sara coming at the end of July, and also the 2028 presidential elections, what certainty can an investor have in a scenario where even us as voters are not happy with what we're seeing?
Alam mo, yung word nga na continuity at saka certainty, baka hindi pa naintindihan ng mga kandidato natin yan. I'm sorry,
Lalo
but
ng botante.
that's how I see it. Now, at the end of the day, it's really the system that is, I'm sorry, no, that's bringing us down. No, I don't like to think, and I've always insisted that hindi totoo na hindi nag-iisip yung Pilipino, na walang disiplina, kasi pag dinala mo yung Pilipino sa ibang setup, biglang marunong siya eh. No? In fact, if you look at OFWs, kahit yung mga blue-collar workers, bakit the moment na nandun sila sa ibang bansa, nagpo-progreso sila, kahit hindi naman mga professional. I've always compared motorists sa Manila, hindi sumusunod sa traffic rules and regulations. Bakit matik pagdating ng Subic at Clark? Matik, naintindihan nila na every crossroad, they have to come to a full stop even if there's no motorist around them. No? So, in other words, if there is a system that impacts on how people behave, it's going to really influence them how to vote right. Eh kaso wala nga tayong ganon. Tao-tao lang eh. Now, last but not the least, if you look at the Constitution of the Philippines, and so many studies have been done in this regard, bukod tangi yung Pilipinas na pag tiningnan mo, lalo na yung mga major provisions, always ends with as may be provided for by law. No? And many jurists, no? You know, I've worked with so many jurists myself. I teach in the faculty with so many jurists. And, you know, it's kind of, a disappointment in their regard, in their thinking, no? Na sabi nila, bakit parang mas importante pa yung legislation ng representatives ng mga tao doon sa supposedly legislation ng tao na yung Constitution mismo. So until we're able to change the system, establish real political parties, ganito na lang tayo. Baka mag-worsen pa.
Pero quickly, I'd like to touch up on, Kathy was mentioning turnout, we're north of 81%, I think. Who benefits from a higher or lower turnout? Because in the US, that's part of campaign strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who benefits? The one with the machinery or the one going against the machinery?
Equity of the incumbent, always. In low turnout, it's equity of the incumbent. And you know, I'm riffing off what Prof was saying. Tama eh, the system is really odd. It will make you scratch your head. Siguro bukod tangi, that's the word I latched onto. Alam mo pa, ang isang bukod tanging aspeto ng Philippine elections, tayo lang ang nag-iisang bansa sa buong mundo na ang Pangulo at ang Vice-Presidente ay hindi magkapartido.
That's right.
We vote them separately. So what do you expect? Seriously, you make a rule like that, what do you expect? Eh di syempre mag-aaway yan dahil usually yung second most powerful official will be eyeing for the top spot after a number of years. Why? Why, man? Why? Lord De Vera, why?
Ang underlying theme natin dito is talagang the system has to be fixed, no? What can we do?
Yeah.
In the meantime, we were not fixing the system.
Well, go out and vote, exercise that democratic. It's a sacred right. It's a sacred right. In fact, something my dad, shout out Relly Herman, always used to tell me, no? Pag hindi ka bumoboto, wag kang magreklamo. You have no right to complain if you don't vote. So I think that's the most guttural way I can put it. No?
Well, I take heart with what I said earlier. Babalikan ko lang 3 hours ago. I mentioned that my daughter voted, and it was her first time to vote.
And she had a good experience.
She did. 45 minutes, nasundo ko pa. And I'm hoping for the same as I rush to do my part.
Yeah,
and I
you
hope
and I
our
both.
audience also does their part. And si Alan, I know you're also rushing.
Yeah, I'm
to
rushing.
do yours
and,
in Pasig, hindi na
Yeah,
lalayo.
voting immediately after. I've been up, you can imagine I haven't had much sleep.
I know. So
I'm
salamat.
getting results
Thank you
live,
so
probably
much.
earlier than the media joke. But
No,
yeah,
but it's true. So
I'll
salamat na marami. Alan Herman, our
I'll
political
definitely
strategist.
go and vote immediately after this.
And you've voted, and you've had a good experience. Edmund Tayo, thank you so much for dropping by. Really appreciate it. And that is it for our coverage of Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Kathy Yang.
Stay tuned to One News until 12 noon tomorrow, May 13th. I'm Diego Castro.
We'll bring you comprehensive news reports from the full force of Media Quest news teams. I'm Pauline Berzosa.
And I'm Denise Tan. Vote wisely and keep safe. Good afternoon.
Simula na naman ng isang bagong umaga, muling pagsibol ng